I'm trying to put the
Mr. Pickles squeezes in there just at the end of the introduction there. Hi and welcome to this week's I often feel like I should have the lights off and a torch underneath my face.
Should. Yeah.
So like looking at my nostrils or something.
And you should, rather than say, well, you should be going, greetings.
Well, we
Welcome
actually
to my nightmare.
Yeah, I actually I forget what I said, but I actually have that ending that I really like.
And you should have the do.
Yeah, I love that ending when I say
Mr. Pickles is looking confused at us now.
oh yeah.
No, he's not. He's muted, so he's just talking to himself.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I know my internet was trying to pretend it's unstable, and I'm not putting up with that anymore.
I remember I like it when I get to the end and say, don't worry, everything we've talked about is just made up. There's no such thing as ghosts. Or is there? Sleep well tonight. I think that's a fantastic ending to Call of Cthulhu. I must remember to do it. Anyway, hello and welcome to I think there's only about 4 more sessions of Call of Cthulhu. Yeah,
who knows?
3.
If we managed to,
yeah, 3 more. So 2 after this one, I think, or 3 after this one. Anyway, unfortunately, Dr. King, played by Longshank CPG, his computer blew a PSU earlier on in the week. So he's
what's PSU in Wilsoni?
I don't know what it is. That's what he said in his message.
Power supply unit.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, so it blew a PSU. So unfortunately, he's without computer. Hopefully, he's tuning in on his phone. I have this vision.
He just messaged me on Discord and said, "I want you to play Dr. King."
No, I did not. I have visions of Longshank CPG just with a tiny little phone, you know,
with a headband on. With it coming down here like a visor.
I thought more under the duvet with a torch, you know, in a darkened room. Somebody was saying to me that Easy Prey 2015 was saying that there was one episode that he had a cushion with him.
Who did? Longshanks?
Yeah. I never watched them back, so I think it was one with you, with Alan Webber. One of them. Anyway, he keeps commenting about it, so I'll have to go back and watch it. So yeah. So anyway, Longshank CPG cannot be with us tonight.
Why doesn't he just use his Xbox One to have Twitch on? And then
I think that's what he's probably doing. I don't know whether or not it was the phone.
There's a Roll20 app for it as well. I bet he just doesn't want to play.
So Dr. King will not be with us tonight, and I think what we're going to do, guys, is just pretend he slept in or something like that. And then go from there.
There's a Roll20 app for Xbox One.
Oh, cool. Did you see?
I was thinking food poisoning.
Did you see your new? Did you see your new badges in the chat?
In which chat?
In my Twitch chat.
I haven't been in. I don't go into your Twitch.
Oh right, I've made new badges. So instead of your subscriber one. That's normally a star.
Let me go in and see, because I want to see what it is.
Yeah.
What is it?
We'll wait and see. I spent ages creating it. Yeah, there you go.
Chugga-wugga.
It's an eye.
Chugga-wugga.
Yeah, it's an eye in a... And you...
Chugga-wugga. Chugga-wugga.
And you've actually been going for more than 2 years, more than a year, because you've got 2 rings round it. And people with under a year just have 1 ring. And then 3 months it has a 3, and 6 months it has a 6 in the middle. And then it goes to 2 rings, and that's all I'm allowed, being an affiliate. But I thought that was quite nice.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Thank you. Rapturous. Rapturous commendations there. Anyway, let's get on, because the investigators are deep in darkest Dartmoor, A lovely alliteration there. Investigating the mystery of the burnt man. The reason it's called the burnt man, it will become apparent as soon as I give the synopsis. But before we do that, it's time for the players to introduce themselves and the investigators that they will be playing tonight. And we start as ever with the legend, which is Mr. Pickles.
I'm Mr. Pickles, and I think my internet is stabilizing itself. Hopefully it is. Today I'm playing Melvin Bleecker, who is a librarian of a very particular sort. He loves occult, he loves history, he's very much into astronomy, he's a dreamer, and all sorts of weirdness inside of his head. But for the most part, he just looks like a mildly irritated, stuffy, lower middle-class librarian. He's kind of new to the group because my prior character was Aaron Weber, but he's very much interested in solving the mystery that we have here. And now I'm going to throw over the microphone to Chuggawaga.
Hi guys, I'm Chugwaga. I play Willard Peabody, who is a artist and photographer of fairly well known in London. He is from a middle class background, although he is doing his best to strive to become one of the upper class gentries. He's had elocution lessons so that he talks properly, and he is always immaculately attired, carries a cane, wears his top hat, and used to be in the army at one point. Had a fairly bad illness on his way back from the African Zulu wars, and suffered from tuberculosis. Has a bit of scarring on the old lung tissue, but he keeps it at bay with his special medicine. And yes, I will pass on to our game master, Inwills.
Keeper. I noticed that Mr. Peabody has shaved his moustache off for this weekend.
I've got it here. The stickiness is going, so I've got to be careful how long I wear it for, because otherwise it falls off. Here we go.
You ought to put a little stick on it so you can just hold it up when you're talking.
Yeah. Put it on a little piece of dowel and then hello.
I say what?
Okay then. So so let me give you a brief synopsis of the investigation so far. So the campaign is actually set in London in 1888. It's February. Winter is lasting through February, and the party have headed off to Dartmoor after a very long journey on a steam train, and they have been hired by a solicitor to help Lady Allingham sort out a certain mess. Well, basically, her husband died about a week ago in some quite horrific situations. However, although Lady Allingham thinks that the local police force are somewhat inept in their investigation skills, this is not why the investigators have been brought to her home in the middle of Dartmoor called Bargrove Hall. The reason is that she believes that her husband, Sir William Allingham, is actually haunting the hall due to the fact that he cannot be laid to rest because of his strange death, or whether or not his killer has not been found. Anyway, the investigators spent last adventure travelling out to Dartmoor, and they arrived at a town called Princeton, before they were led or driven in a carriage by the carriage driver, Mr. Mckenzie. They arrived at the hall, and after settling in and getting used to their surroundings, they were sent for to have dinner with the lady. They were accompanied or joined by the lady and the late Sir William's daughter, Ursula, and also Ursula's governess and teacher, Mademoiselle, and the name
Ducray.
Yeah, Ducray, Mademoiselle Josephine Ducray, who is en français, French. Anyway, the investigators settled in and decided to keep vigilant throughout the night. And it was throughout the night that several strange things happened. And I'm just moving us across to the hall. So we can see these strange things happen. Where Dr. King is at the moment, that is where you all took up your vigilance. And to start off with, I think it was you, Mr. Peabody, who went first.
Yes.
Yeah, and you felt the temperature drop, and then you went along to room 10 when the shutters of the window had been opened. And looking outside, you saw something, I think.
There was a childlike. Oh, well, the first thing that Peabody heard was he heard the running of footsteps. Probably a smaller person, child, or a young adult. And then when he went to
upstairs, was that?
Upstairs, he heard it, and then there was a draft coming from down the hallway. And when he went there, he found the room to the. I believe it was a trophy room.
Yeah, number 10. Yeah.
Yes. Open, and the shutters were also
no, billiard room.
Billiard room. Yes,
yeah.
And the shutters were also open, and outside the window he saw a pair of footprints, barefooted, of a small child.
Yeah. Excellent. And then Miss Dr. King spent the night, and you guys will not know this, and he's obviously got a bout of food poisoning or something, but he actually heard noises as well. Mr. Bleeker, I don't think you heard noises throughout your watch.
You hadn't gone on to. He had had a dream.
That was it. Yeah.
When we were, but it was the first part of the adventure was Mr. Bleeker's watch.
Yes, and I do believe that you had a strange dream, Mr. Bleeker. Was that correct?
Yes.
What did that entail?
Yeah, I had a dream. I'm just reading my strange notes, get more frantic the longer the game goes. Body of Sir William was bound to a stone very tightly, crying out for help in my dream while I was walking towards him. I guess I tried to help, but the flames leapt out all around him and scorched up his body while he was screaming. And I believe he either whispered to me in the room or screamed at me, "Wake up," at the end.
Yeah, there was a childlike whisper in your ear, as if somebody was in the room, and you woke up quite perturbed about that. And yes, as mentioned by Chuggerwugger, it is actually your watch to finish off the night. So yeah, we'll dive straight in there. Mr. Peabody, you've gone to bed.
I'm in room. Yes, the large master.
Number 22. Yeah. And you sort of like settled down. So you've been asleep for a good amount of time now, because you were asleep all the way through Dr. King's watch. And Mr. Bleeker, you wake up and you don't feel rested at all. It was quite a harrowing dream, and it's one of those dreams that you feel that even though you were obviously in REM sleep and fast asleep and dreaming, it seems as if you almost like woke up and just fell to sleep 2 minutes ago, if that makes sense. And it is Dr. King sort of like wakes you up, and Dr. King looks somewhat harassed, somewhat nervous, and almost like grateful that it's his time to go to bed. And you sort of like go down the steps 25 there, and you can look up through number 6, because that's the overhanging balcony, and you take up your position in the chair that is provided, along with a candle that doesn't look as big as you remember it from when the night started, but you hope and pray that it's going to actually last your vigilance out. And you settled down on the chair. Is there anything you would like to do in particular?
Yes, there is. Melvin Bleeker's read a fair number of occult theories and hypotheses in books, so he's going to use some of the powders that he's packaged, salt, to make a circle around the chair, hoping that it's solid enough that I won't break it accidentally with a twitch of my foot, hopefully. And then I'll settle down to enjoy the atmosphere, see if this is like the stories.
Okay, so you sort of like settle down, and you soon become accustomed to the creaks and groans of an old house. And of course you're out on Dartmoor, so you can hear quite a brisk wind blowing across the moors that is sort of like whistling through the holes and the ancient hall. You also notice that many of the fires around have gone out, and you figure it's only going to be about 2 or 3 hours, before the servants get up to start to relight fires and sort of like get things underway. If you remember, room 12 and 11 are the sort of like the scullery and things like that, and 13 goes down to the cellar. Okay, first things first, can you make for me a luck? Oh, that just reminded me, we need to do luck rolls to see whether or not your luck comes back, because I don't think we did it at the end of last session. So you just roll 1d100, and if you get higher than your luck, then you get 1d10 back.
30? No.
I didn't spend any luck, and I remember you saying if you've spent luck to do luck roll. Is that, would I still roll for luck in this case?
Have you? Is your luck exactly what it was before? Yeah. Yes and no. Yes. It just stays like that. It will sort of like
use 3 points of luck to make my luck score to get 1d10?
Say again, sorry.
I was being funny.
Oh, right.
I was asking whether I could use.
So, Mr. Bleeker, can you roll your luck? Just the green dice will be fine. Yeah, so you're quite lucky in the sense that you don't fall to sleep, since you've had quite a disturbed night already. And it's while you're sort of like sat within your circle of salt that you hear something. Can you just make a listen roll for me, please?
I would love to. This librarian, he's got ears.
Yeah, you hear the sound of something crashing. It sounds as if something's been knocked over, and it's coming from the corridor. I'm just going to ping the map. This corridor here, and it's coming from somewhere down there, and it's up to you whether or not you decide to investigate or stay safely in your salt circle.
Oh, they always do that. Am I able to lean forward and look down that hallway, or is it?
Yes, by all means.
I'm going to lean forward and look down then.
Yeah, you sort of like look down, and you sort of like your candle sheds some light down there. You can't see anything in the corridor at all. The door at the end to the billiard room is firmly shut, and you sort of like lean forward and you sort of like have a listen, and it's just everything's just almost like very quiet again.
Well, my curiosity is piqued, so I'm gonna start moving down the hallway. I'm gonna leave my circle of salt.
Okay then, yeah. Whereabouts would you like to get to, and when would you like to stop, and what would you like to do as you go down there?
This is about the area I'd like to stop. You can pull me back, of course.
Okay, yeah.
And while I'm going down, I'm going to hold the candle out and put my hand in my pocket on my gun.
Yeah.
So I just have one hand on my gun just in case it's something dangerous.
Yeah, so you get to the end of the corridor and you notice that all the doors are firmly shut. You're not too sure which door the sound came from, but it definitely sounded like a vase being knocked over. Roll me your idea roll, which is just your intelligence. Yeah, you sort of like quickly sort of like think back because you've been in these rooms as you were exploring it earlier on, and you think it was probably in room 9, which was the drawing room, the parlour. Sorry, if you remember, that had a fireplace and it had the picture of Sir William round about it and over the fireplace, and there was a similar picture in room 8 as well, in your dining room. But it was definitely in that parlour that you remember seeing various vases, mostly oriental it seems, if you remember correctly, rather than in the billiard room or the trophy room. It could have been in the trophy room, and in which case it wasn't something being knocked over. It would have been something smashing into one of the glass cabinets. 15 are rooms that are not used at all.
So you're saying it's either a 9 or 16 is where the crash came from,
yes,
most likely?
Yes, and 9 is the parlour, and that's where had the big picture of Sir William in, as well as some others that you know might have died of a curse, I think, that you are aware of now. But also sort of like big chairs, almost like a drawing room situation. 10 was the billiard room, and if you remember, 16 was the trophy room. That had not only trophies for events, but also trophies, i.e. I've been to India and butchered a tiger, things like that.
Well, that's upsetting. I'll go to room 16 first then in my inspections.
Yeah.
The candle door held, and then I'm letting go my gun in that case.
Yeah. Okay then, so you go down to room 16. Is the idea just to open the door and go in?
Yes, to do a quiet walkabout, and look for anything that seems out of the ordinary, anything broken.
Yeah, so you twist the door handle and gently push it, and your candlelight illuminates the room slightly. You notice that everything seems to be exactly where it was, and there seems to be no broken glass. There seems to be nothing toppled over or anything, almost like leading you to the decision that it was actually in room 9, that in the parlour, that the crash probably came from.
All right, good to know. I'm going to close the door as quietly as I can, and then I'll move up to room 9.
So, same thing again? Are you opening the door and peering in?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if I have to, I'll walk into the room too to investigate.
Okay, so you twist the door handle, and once more this door is shut, and it's not locked, it's just closed, and you sort of like release it off the snack and sort of like open the door, and your candle like floods into the room. And the first thing you notice is that, one of the vases has been knocked over, and it's just sort of like smashed on the ground. Interestingly enough, it's right next to a cabinet. So if you imagine like a long cabinet that would hold a vase at either end. At one end, there's nothing. At the other end, there's a vase on the bench, on the top of the cabinet, and a smashed vase down on the floor. right next to it. You sort of like scan around, and you suddenly notice that things are definitely not in the right place. It looks like things have been moved, and you sort of like remember where the chairs were, and they seem to be swapped around. This is due to your extreme idea roll that you did, and sort of like things do not look like, it's almost as if everything's been swapped around, and things are sort of like in a strange place. And yeah, it was definitely the smashing of the vase underneath this vase that is in the right place. I'm just going to slide you into the room.
Is there any significance to the two vases, the broken one or the one that's still on its throne?
No. Do you have any appropriate skill to sort of like decide what they might be, what era they might be from, or anything like that?
Well, you said they look like they're Oriental vases. Latin probably wouldn't help me there.
No. Do you
have history?
What is your history in?
I don't think I can specialize that one.
Okay.
It's just basic history, but then I have science astronomy.
Okay, roll your praise roll. That'll probably be the nearest one then. It's a low score, so we're not hoping for much.
Well, I don't want to praise vases. I'm a librarian.
Yeah, it looks almost like willow pattern like. You can't imagine Lady Arlingham having anything having tat in her place, so you figure it's probably quite expansive. Just so you know, the one on the mantle is about this high.
Okay.
And about this wide, so it's quite substantial, and it looks like the cabinet seems to be full. You open sort of like the cupboard doors, and it seems to be full of what appears to be like the second dinner set or something like that, which seems to be fine inside. And you're just about to. So anything else you would like to do?
Yes. I want to glance over to the portrait of Sir William. Does it still have the black bit of cloth on it?
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, when you turn your candle around to that area, so I'm just going to ping the map. The vases were probably about here. And that's what you've been looking at. And you sort of like look over to the fireplace. And remember that it's up above the fireplace. And two things immediately come to your attention. Well, three things actually. The first thing is the portrait of Sir William is actually upside down. Okay, it's absolutely completely hung upside down. The other thing that you notice is that it appears that somebody's taken some kind of blade and slashed it from side to side to side. It is still recognizable as the portrait, but you notice that it's got these severe cuts all over it. Quite deep. It's not sort of like etching. It looks like somebody's literally stabbed in some kind of knife and grated it across. And as you sort of like take a step forward, you suddenly notice that starting at the bottom of the picture and cascading over the mantelpiece of the fireplace, and still now when you're looking at it, dripping onto the carpet below around the hearth, appears to be blood leaking out of the portrait and going onto the hearth. Sanity check, please.
Yeah, it feels appropriate. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Yeah, you're quite taken back at the to start off with, but as your torchlight sort of like catches it, you're somewhat puzzled about how it drips, and as you get closer, you don't think it might be blood. It might be some kind of red liquid, but you're not too sure. And that sort of like reflects your sanity check there.
But is there? I know you already said it's just slashed from side to side. Is there any like? Does it slash right across his neck on the portrait, or
it looks as if it's been some kind of all over the place?
Okay, just chaotic. That okay.
Yes, yeah, almost like you roll a psychology check for me.
Not too good at people, but
yeah, it just looks like quite random. It doesn't look like it's been cut in any particular place. It just seems to be completely random throughout.
That's upsetting. This whole mess is upsetting.
You think it'll be probably dawn, in a couple of hours.
But the blood's dripping, the carpet's staining it, or
it's
whatever.
Yeah, it's onto the hearth. So it's sort of like there's sort of like a marble hearth that it's dripping onto, then rolling off onto the carpet. There's a rug by the carpet. It's probably absorbing the majority of it.
Oh dear.
Definitely not something that you would want Lady Allingham to see in the morning.
Yeah, well, it's upsetting for a clean freak librarian here, but yeah, I guess I'm gonna try and start cleaning up. I don't know where supplies are. I'm gonna go try and find a servant. That the servants aren't up.
No, I mean there might be something in number 12 is the scullery, so there might be something in the scullery.
Yeah, I'll try the scullery then. See if I can get some cleaning supplies to start getting this mess cleaned up.
Yeah, okay then. So you head round. So I'm just checking something. Oh yes, there we are. Yeah, and you head round to number 12. You should be able to move yourself round. To number 12, not a problem. And you sort of like open the door hoping to find some kind of cleaning equipment, but as you open the door you suddenly see something on the floor, and it's something quite strange, and you sort of like almost like have to take a double take at it, and you suddenly notice that on the floor are a series of bones, and they're very small bones, and you sort of like have a look and you sort of like thinking, what on earth? And it suddenly you sort of like put two to two together, and it's obviously from the dinner, the meal that you had, and they're sort of like laid out on the floor in almost like curious patterns. So to give you some, I'm just going to draw some of them on the map so you can see them. So there's one that looks like this, and it almost like looks like an arrowhead, but it's pointing away from the door, i.e. towards the back door. So it's pointing sort of like this way. You also notice on the floor there's lots just like this on the floor, just like in a some kind of rectangular shape. There are some that seem to be more on the side and have a bone inside them. There's about 6 altogether, but those are the 3 shapes that are then repeated once again. And they're just, I mean, they're not massive bones, they're sort of like tiny animal bones that are sort of like positioned like that in the floor. And to be honest with you, if you hadn't come in so carefully, you think you probably would have stood on them as you walked in.
An arrowhead, or is that a cross?
That's exactly what it looks like.
Well, those squares it's pointing out the back, and right out the back door, it would be the ornamental gardens and the places we saw coming in.
Yeah, so if you look at the top map, this is the exit.
Okay, I was thinking correctly then.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend some time puzzling about this.
You do notice that there's various cleaning equipment in here as well.
It's pointing out the back door, though. I'm going to try and memorize these patterns as well as I can.
Yeah,
it's feeling very perplexing.
Yeah, you can probably jot them down on something. So if you jot them down, Mr. Peabody, if you drop them down as well, I know you're not actually here at the moment, but the chances are that Mr. Bleeker will mention them later on, so you can have probably good to have a copy of them in preparation. Yeah, so
and then I'm going to clean it up.
Yeah, so you sort of like scoop up the bones and put them on a plate that seems to have been left on the table, and you think that they probably were on that plate. And then you manage to get some cloths and almost like a pail of water, and you go back to the parlour, ready to clean up the supposedly blood on the floor. And when you get back there, the picture is still upside down and slashed, but there's no remnants of the blood or red whatever at all. It's totally, so you sort of like come in with your bucket and your candle, and you sort of like look there, and yeah, the picture is still upside down. It's still got these hideous slashes across the portrait, but where there was blood dripping out of it and off the mantelpiece onto the hearth, there's now nothing. And even you sort of like get close. Just do a spot hidden roll for me.
Wow.
Yeah, even when you get really close, there's not even a stain on it of any of the fibres or anything. And you're even getting to the point that you're thinking to yourself, did I imagine that? Because there's no staining or anything on the carpet or the hearth or anything. The portrait is still upside down and heavily slashed, and the vase is still broken, but there is no red liquid or blood or whatever at all.
I think I know. It must clearly been a bat that came down the chimney and slashed up the painting and knocked over the vase and panicked me, and I saw red and then it flew off.
Yeah.
That must have been what it was.
You figured the blade would have been about this big.
Melvin doesn't know much about bats, but he's going to assume they have blades like that.
Okay.
And I guess I'll take the cleaning supplies back then. I don't need to clean up a mess of organic fluid.
Yeah. And so the rest of your evening watch goes quite uneventful. And before long, just after dawn and the sun's about to rise, you notice that the servants start to come down from upstairs. They live right the way up in the attic, and before long you notice that people, Mr. Peabody as well, servants are politely knocking on your door and bringing you in hot water to wash and shave in, and they're sort of like opening those heavy curtains and letting the light in and starting your fires, because you suddenly realise that, getting up in the morning on Dartmoor, it's not the warmest place around. And they sort of like inform you that breakfast will be served in the dining room at 8 a.m.
Before breakfast, and once he knows that, what we're doing with King, is King going to be part of this, or
no? I would just play it out between.
Okay, so he's going to he's going to once he's properly attired, clean shaven, hair brushed back. He's going to he'll go and knock on Bleeker's door, and he'll say, "Are you up, Bleeker?"
Yes, I am. I should be ready. Come on.
Are you?
Well, as much as I will be on this trip.
Excellent. And he'll go in.
Okay.
Interesting last night. I think it's probably the child who is seeking attention.
Sorry, your mustache, Mr. Peabody. It looks like it was over to one side.
It keeps falling. It's fine. And I keep getting my drink caught in it.
You know what you have to do for next week?
Yeah, grow one.
Grow one. Yeah. That'll be excellent.
Yeah. I'll just put it this way: I have as much use of growing facial hair as I do hair on my head.
Have you not got one of those from Christmas crackers that actually have sort of like the nose clip?
No, the only thing this is actually sticky. The only thing I can hope for is that my nasal hair grows enough.
And you can't.
It out.
Yeah. That'd be smart. We'll look forward to that. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
The daughter, Ursula, I think her name was, seeking attention, I think, over her, not wanting to let go of her father and all that. Maybe a bit of tomfoolery going on.
The daughter, I hadn't really considered that she would be. I thought a bat flew into the sitting room with the portrait.
A bat?
Yes. I heard a crash last night, and I'm sure that I'll have to tell the servants where to clean, but I found a broken vase, and the painting was turned upside down and slashed to bits, and the black cloth was removed, and I saw a trick of the light. I thought maybe there was what is it?
Bleeker, more details.
I wanted
of
Sir William. Sir William, the guy who is dead on haunting, I guess. But why would his daughter want to slash up his picture? That seems a little bit weird if she doesn't want to let go of him.
Well, I wasn't aware that the picture had been slashed until you've just mentioned it. Large painting, if I remember, large.
Yes, it was slashed up by a blade at least of the size of slashing with. Bats can slash pretty well, can't they?
Bats, you say?
Yes, that's what I think happened, because there's nobody in the room. There's no child there.
Mr. Pickles,
I wasn't paying much attention.
Sorry, is Mr. Pickles, are you in Discord?
No, but I'll launch it.
Yeah, because I've just sent you a message, that's all.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Peabody.
Bats, you say, Bleeker? Exactly how many ports did you have last night?
Well, maybe I had a few.
Not used to alcohol. Especially of the more expensive. variety, I take it.
Father always disapproved of drinking, and
More the point, large painting.
Yes, I don't think Ursula
Hung up above the fireplace.
Yes. It's
upside down, you say?
Yes, upside down. Well, if she couldn't do it, I don't know if a bat could either.
A bit large, a bit heavy, and a bit out of reach of an 8-year-old child, would you not say?
Quite possibly, yes. But there was nobody in the room. Believe me, I looked. There was no way they could have gotten past my ears. I would have heard them.
The slashing.
Yes, but also yes, that's a good point. I guess I would have heard slashing. All I heard was
could it have been done by a man standing up, or would the painting have to be taken down to do that type of thing? Was there any marks on the floor?
Well, friend, why don't we just walk down to the room and we can both yap our mouths about the current situations in the room of evidence.
Have we got time before breakfast?
Yes, you have time. It's only about quarter past.
The main meal of the day.
Yeah, of course, I am with you there. But
let's very good last night. Very good indeed.
And you, as you sort of like head out of the room, you notice that the room to Dr. King's door to Dr. King's room is closed by what appears to be a housemaid, and she sort of like sees you gentlemen coming out of the room, and she sort of like almost like fumbles a curtsy and sort of like says, sorry, kind sirs, Mr. Dr. King has been taken ill. He thinks it might have been something to do with the meal last night. He was asked to keep to sleep late, and we will check on him at a later date.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and you can sort of like head on down to the parlour, and as you go, you notice that various people, maids who are sort of like the servants, sort of like it's almost like step out the way as you come towards them, as if to say, what the hell are you guys doing up? You shouldn't come down for breakfast, and that's about it. But they sort of like step to one side and hold in their sheets, clean towels or whatever that they've got, and sort of like fumble a curtsy or a stiff bow to you. And you sort of like arrive at the parlour door. And as you arrive there, you notice Howard. I don't know if you remember Howard.
Mm-hmm.
The butler.
He's sort of like coming out of the parlour, and just sort of like shuts the door and sort of like turns around to you and says, "Oh, good morning, gentlemen."
Howard, isn't it? Howard?
Yes. That is my name, sir. How can I be of
children in the manor? One is there?
Yes, sir. That would be.
Any of the servants have children?
No, sir. It's very strict regulations by Her Ladyship. We are not allowed to have family units as servants. The youngest maid, sir, will be of age 13.
13, you say?
Yes, sir, 13.
And Miss Ursula, any friends one that she plays with?
No, sir. The young Ursula does not participate in any activities with the housemaids or the servants here, sir. It is quite below her to do so.
No. I quite understand that, Howard. I meant any noble friends that may come to visit or stay.
No, sir. You are the first visitors here for since before Christmas, sir. Yes, as you probably saw on your way out here, we are somewhat in a rather remote area of the southwest of England. not many people would consider us a place to spend a vacation, especially during the winter months.
Indeed. Bit of a way out. No carriages at the station. None at all.
No, sir. I hope it wasn't. I apologise for Mr. Mckenzie's tardiness if he was late in picking you up, but we knew of your arrival, so he was sent in plenty of time. I can have words with him, sir, if he was tardy in any way.
It's of no matter. We arrived here. My acquaintance here, Beaker.
Yes, Mr. Bleeker.
Bleeker. He said that he saw something in the room, the parlour last night. Know anything about it? Do you?
Yes, sir. There has been some alterations in the parlour throughout the night. Something that we're quite used to. I'm not too sure whether or not the lady has mentioned the various activities that happened during the evening.
Yes, we know, but any information that you could, any more information you could give us would be most beneficial.
About
and any of the happenings around the house. You being one of the main people in the house, you obviously know what's going on.
Yes, and I hope you wouldn't consider this as impolite in any way, sir, but I would have to speak to her ladyship in order to ascertain whether or not I am allowed to partake in a discussion relating to the activities for her house.
Well, we were under the impression that the hired help actually knew why we were here and were to give us full support.
Yes, sir. We are aware of the reason for your attendance here at the hall. However, the ladyship hasn't mentioned to us, and I do apologise if it seems somewhat presumptuous of me, but I hope you understand that without the ladyship's direct recommendation and consent, we are not allowed to participate. We, as in myself and the other members of the servants, allowed to engage with you about private matters. However, I can most definitely have a talk with her ladyship at breakfast.
Yes, Howard. That's fine. We will speak to her ourselves. We will at some point need to probably speak to everybody in the house concerning what is happening here, won't we, Bleeker?
Yes, we will.
Yes, sir, of course.
We do need to. Just stand aside. We need to have a look at the tomfoolery that happened last night.
Oh, yes, sir. And we haven't had time to clear anything up. But yes, sorry, sir. And he sort of like turns the handle and pushes the door open for the to the parlour. And as you walk in, he sort of like says, "Will sirs be taking breakfast at 8 a.m.?"
Yes.
Yes, the ladyship will be down shortly. I will inform her.
Good show, Howard.
And she sort of like, he gives you a smart nod of the head and closes the door to the parlour with you both inside. Yeah.
So if anybody wants to have a look at this this painting and see whether or not he can judge how for the top, where the top slash is, because are the slashes still on the painting?
Yes, and it's still upside down.
Okay, so the top slash, so to the highest.
Sorry, it's no longer hanging above the mantle though. It has been taken down, and there seems to be, beforehand there was that black cloth over it. If you remember, that sort of like has been extended over it as if to cover it up. So it is still upside down underneath that. So you sort of like remove it. It looks more as if it was trying to spare her ladyship the sight of it. Yeah, and the cuts go from bottom to top, if that makes sense. It would have either have to have been taken off and slashed, or you figure a man or woman, well, probably a man, would have to be about 6 foot or slightly higher, slightly taller to actually do it. Do
they look deep cuts? Have they gone right?
Just roll a psychology roll.
Oh, it's one of my best skills.
Yeah, they look quite deep. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you wish to re-roll it? Do you wish to push it?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah, they do look quite deep.
Okay, so Peabody wants to sort of like grab hold of. He wants to judge how heavy it is to see whether or not. He's mainly looking to see whether or not Ursula or a woman could lift it off. Something of a lower stature.
It's got a heavy gilt frame round it, and it's very heavy. You think both. It would take both you and Mr. Bleecker to actually lift it to get it back into its position.
Okay, he's going to put the cover back over it just in case, and he wants to go over to the fireplace, and he wants to have a look at the wall where the painting was hanging to see whether or not he can see any marks of, if it was still up in its position above the fireplace, whether or not there's any marks where the knife might or the instrument might have gone.
So roll your spot hidden roll. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any marks on the wall at all. So the picture might have been taken down and slashed in a horizontal fashion, off the wall. Or you looking at the back of the picture, it's sort of like if you imagine the canvas is here, there is a gap between the wooden back of the frame. So, it doesn't necessarily mean it would have gone through onto the wall.
Okay. Just to be doubly sure, Peabody's just going to have a look round on the floor just to see whether or not he can see any. I presume that is one of these. Are the floors sort of like varnished type?
They're carpeted.
Carpeted.
Well, they're not carpeted. They're like big rugs.
Right.
That don't quite go to the corners, but rather than a straight shiny floor.
Yeah. He's going to turn around to Bleecker and he's going to say, Bleecker, windows shuttered, were they?
I believe so. But I'm not quite following your little girl hypothesis. At this point, I feel like we should be suspecting a large man. Well,
it was all to do with what I had encountered. Bleecker.
You encountered something. Well, do share.
Heard footsteps, light footsteps, running, and a noise from the billiard room, and drafty it was. Window open, footprints, small, childlike, unbooted, outside. Pair of two.
That sounds terrible. Whoever was walking around there is probably going to be freezing their feet off.
Well, immediately assumed that maybe it was Miss Ursula playing around. Or, as my questioning, which you probably picked up on straight away to Howard, maybe one of the servants had a child, or maybe somebody from the village, a playmate of Ursula.
I was beginning to wonder. Those were kind of some strange questions to be asking Howard.
Yeah, obviously, out of the question now. Painting too heavy, too tall. I don't think even you could lift it, Bleecker.
Yeah, you need at least 4 children.
You weren't in the army.
No. but Father taught me how to shoot with a gun, so it's kind of like...
Shooting and hitting, two different matters. Anyway, I don't think it can actually be. I don't think it could be Ursula. No way on God's earth could she have lifted it down.
Indeed. But Howard seems to know something.
Well, hired help. Servants.
He wouldn't...
Don't speak unless you're spoken to and all that.
Yes.
Probably been employed for some amount of time. Doesn't want to jeopardize his career.
I suppose, but if there's anything that he wouldn't share with us, it's because he's hiding it. Lady Amanda Allingham, she shared everything.
Broken vase, you say?
Yes, and maybe chicken bone. What did we have last night for dinner? It was so good, but...
It was quail.
Quail? Oh, yes, quail.
Chicken. We don't have chicken.
There were bones all over the scullery floor. I cleaned them up.
I'm not too sure whether or not you heard it, but there was almost like a ringing of a handbell.
I can't hear anything when Zoom's on.
Oh, I heard that, and I got very alarmed. I thought that was happening in real life.
No.
Okay, that makes more sense.
It's going to come again. You figure it's probably the ringing of the bell to say that breakfast is probably being served.
But before he goes out, Peabody wants to look at the height of the picture frame.
Yeah.
And where the vase had been knocked off from. If it had been rested up against it, whether or not it could have knocked over the vase if it's of that height.
It could have. The vase and the cabinet are over at the sort of like the northwest of the room. It could have been, if it had been propped up against it, the vase will probably have fallen down the back of the cabinet. Right. This almost is right, it's smashed right in front of the other vase. And they were definitely a matching pair on either side. And roll an idea roll, Mr. Peabody.
Which is intelligence.
Just intelligence, yeah. Yeah, it's almost as if somebody or something was trying to swap the vases over.
But holding on to one and trying to...
And then tried to move the other one and dropped it.
Right.
Yeah.
Before he goes out, Peabody wants to... How big is this vase?
Yeah, it's about this wide.
Yeah.
And about this high.
He wants to carefully lift it off and look inside the one that's complete.
Yeah, it seems to be of some maybe foreign china. It's quite... hefty, so you don't think the quality is that good, apart from dust, a dead butterfly and the odd spider. It seems to be empty. You do actually think, good grief, they should really clean in here.
Is it dusty? Is it? I've got wine on my mustache.
The classic problem.
Yeah, this is why I don't have facial hair or hair on my head. Is there any dust underneath the vase?
No. It looks like the actual the top of the cabinet has been well kept clean. However, it looks like inside, your maid back at your establishment would always clean inside the vase.
Okay, he's going to carefully put it back where it was, making sure that he doesn't mishandle it at all and knock it off. Before turning to Bleak and saying, "Breakfast, I think, Bleaker, breakfast."
Yes.
Best meal of the day.
Indeed.
Can't march on an empty stomach.
I suppose you couldn't, but let's get to it.
Yeah, and you make your way over to the dining room, and when you actually get there, you notice that Lady Allingham is already seated. She makes no attempt to stand up to greet you. You also notice that Mademoiselle Ducray is there, and so's Ursula, and they're sort of like there having breakfast that appears to be some kind of eggs and it looks like it's some kind of rations of meat, maybe bacon or something like that. There's also tea in pots for you, and the Howard sort of like shows you to your chairs, and sort of like there's toast and preserves as well for you if you wish, and good old-fashioned butter. But the room is quite warm. Lady Allingham, you could swear, has exactly the same outfit on as she had when you saw her yesterday. Very sort of like dark, very black, very not looking good at all. It does look quite, I shouldn't say this of a lady, but haggard, as if she hasn't slept much at all. Of course, Dr. King would probably be able to give you a more clear diagnosis. You do notice that as you walk in, Howard was talking to her ladyship, and she sort of like comes over. You sort of like sit down, and she sort of like says, "Gentlemen, I trust you slept well."
Reasonably well, thank you very much.
Just to let you know that I have had a word with Howard, and he will make all the servants at your disposal for the rest of the morning. Apparently, for some reason, the parlour is out of bounds this morning. Apparently, Sir William, shall we say, caused several items to be damaged there during his evening of haunting. Luckily for me, he spared my room for the night. Can I also state that the upstairs will be available for you, maybe once Ursula and Mademoiselle Ducray have left for their morning constitutional. Maybe that will be a suitable time while I will be reading in the library.
Yes, splendid. Yes. Yes, very, very decent of you. Yeah, so I think we do need to we do need to ask the servants various questions. Will all rooms be available on the first floor?
And she sort of like turns to Howard, who sort of like almost like gives this sort of like, and she sort of like turns around and says, "Yes. Once my room is suitably clean, ready for guests, I hope you understand that it is not really a custom for us to have strangers entering her ladyship's bedroom, but on this occasion you are welcome to have a look." You do notice at this point, out of this door, clad in his outdoor gear, and Howard looks quite perturbed as he notices that he's still got his boots on. Actually coming in is Mr. Mckenzie, James Mckenzie, the carriage driver, and he sort of like comes in, and you notice that cook is sort of like trying to bring him away, and he sort of like seems to be very desperate almost to actually come into the breakfast room, and almost like seeing that she's given up. She's not going to win, sort of like dragging him out. She sort of like pulls his flat cap off his head and sort of like gives it to him, and he sort of like rolls it up and has it in his arms. And Howard turns around and suddenly sees him and goes up to her ladyship and say, "Lady Allingham, it would appear Mr. Mckenzie has come up to have a word with you. And she sort of like says, please show him in, Howard. And Mr. Mckenzie sort of like comes in, and you can see as he comes in that he's leaving almost like wet footprints, boot prints on the rug. And because it looks like he's even got bits of snow on around the edge of his boots, and he sort of like comes up to his ladyship, and the ladyship just sort of like carries on quietly eating fingers of toast with preserve on them, and he sort of like comes up and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, my lady, but I really do think it needs to stop. I really don't know what." Yes, Mckenzie. Please, before you divulge a whole load of irrelevant and almost inconsequential information, please come straight to the point. Oh, yeah, yes, my lady. The horses. Yes, what about the horses, Mckenzie? Well, it would appear, my ladyship, that somebody has been at them again. And she almost like goes, as if to think, what on earth does at them mean? And Howard almost like comes to his rescue and say, Mr. Mckenzie, maybe you could elaborate on the terminology you are using to her ladyship. Maybe elaborate on what you actually mean. And Mr. Mckenzie goes, and Howard says, give her more details, Mr. Mckenzie. Oh, yes, sorry. And you suddenly realise that he probably didn't even understand the word elaborate. Well,
Peabody's going to sort of like pipe in and say, have they been stolen?
Oh, no, sir. They are still in the stables. And he sort of like almost like looks suspiciously at her ladyship, and she sort of like says, you are free to discuss in front of our professional help here. And you suddenly notice that she's actually referring to you as help, which is almost
like a servant.
Yeah. He says, well, my ladyship, I went out to deal with the horses, and well, it's happened again, my ladyship. What has happened again, Mckenzie? Please try to come straight to the point. Well, he says, their manes and their tails, yes, Mckenzie, spit it out, please. They've been plaited. Yeah, yes, Mom. Plaited and knotted and tangled. It's going to take me the good half of the morning, Mom, to actually get them back. They've been, plaited, tangled and knotted. Yes, Mom.
Surely, people from the village playing a prank.
And it's interesting because this is the first time that you've mentioned the village, and I presume you're referring to Bargrove,
yes.
The village of Bargrove. And you notice that Miss Lady Allingham's face almost like changes immediately, and she sort of like looks over you to Mr. Peabody and says, yes, well, one could expect anything from the people of that village. Yes, they are on strict instructions not to come anywhere near the hall, but you know what busybodies and good to do with nothing people are like. Mckenzie, please deal with the carriage and the horses. Yes, my lady, I will sort. Yes, and please remember,
Mckenzie, first time this has happened, is it?
And Mckenzie sort of like goes to talk, and Lady Allingham sort of like butts in and says, no, Mr. Peabody, it's not the first time. Yes, I agree with you. It could be some of the lower class people from the village coming in up here to cause havoc. Who would have thought that my late husband's decisions would lead to anything like this? However, I think it's quite important that I say nothing more. I do not wish to give a biased opinion, maybe later today you may be able to take a journey to the village and make your own conclusions. Mckenzie, would that be possible? Yes, my lady, but maybe after luncheon.
Yeah,
Yes.
will carriage be available, will it?
Yes, the carriage will be available, and I have now made it quite clear to all my staff, Mr. Peabody, that they are to help you with both your questions and your investigation. Are we assuming that a week will be long enough?
Well, more than sufficient, I would say.
An early...
Bleaker?
Yes, I think that'll be more than enough.
An early conclusion to the matter would be most appreciative.
We will do our best, of course, Lady Allingham. But man down and all that, King, you know.
Yes, I heard.
Icky stomach.
Yes, I've had Cook do some of her famous chicken broth. Hopefully, that will bring Mr. Dr. King round very quickly. If not, I can always order leeches from London. Maybe some draining of the bad blood might be efficient in speeding.
Probably
it.
has something in his bag, doctor and all that.
At this point, Mademoiselle Ducret sort of like pushes her chair back, and Howard quickly gets there and sort of like holds it back, and she says,
Peabody will stand up.
Yeah, and she sort of says, Ladyship, I will be taking Ursula out shortly for her morning constitutional. That's my French accent, by the way, if you just think French.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, and she says, yes, I will be taking her out shortly for her morning constitution. Would that suit your ladyship? And Lady Allingham says, yes. And Ursula says, will we be able to play in the snow? Oh, Ursula, dear, ladies do not play in the snow. And Mademoiselle Ducret sort of like ushers her off upstairs, and you sit and finish your meeting. Is there anything you would like to ask Lady Allingham? Just to let you know, this is probably not the time to talk to Howard in the ladyship's presence. Probably best to wait, proper etiquette and all. Yeah.
Can we bring up the what's happened at the village?
Yes, by all means, go for it.
So Peabody will say, you mentioned to Mckenzie trouble with the villagers, something to do with your late husband's.
Yes, Mr. Peabody.
I wondered whether or not you could elaborate on that for us.
Yes, Mr. Peabody, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's very important that I do not present a biased view of the village before you have seen it for your own eyes. Maybe after, over dinner tonight, I will tell you my thoughts. And she sort of like pushes her chair slightly back, and Howard sort of like comes.
Peabody will stand up.
Moves the chair, and she says, "Gentlemen, I will be retiring to my bedroom to prepare myself. Please use the downstairs. Once I will get Howard to come and tell you that when it is possible to search or investigate the upper floors." And she quite nobly and quite upright glides out with her ruffled dress, all in black, and she almost like seems as if she's almost like Whitby Jet, she's almost quite stoic, and as if nothing seems to be perturbing her at all. And she glides out, only Howard giving a brief nod. And Howard sort of like rings a little bell again, and the servants start to come in to clear the table. as you finish your toast and preserves off.
We'll go back upstairs for a short period of time, and Peabody's going to bring. He's going to ask Bleeker about the strange quail bones that he saw on the floor, and with his sketch pad and pencil, and with Bleeker's crude drawing that he probably made. Peabody's going to try to draw them out in so that he's got a copy of them on his.
That's obviously fine. So I've left them on the map there for you.
Then he's going to say, well, "What do you make of them, Bleeker?"
I think that they mean somebody was trying to escape through the scullery while I was searching the room with the broken vase. And my back would have been turned. They could have been hiding in one of the other rooms, referring to room 15, of course, in either case. And perhaps that was their time. Though I have very sensitive ears, I'm surprised anyone would be able to sneak past my senses.
Church. That's what sprung to my mind. Bleeker Church.
Just to remind you, room 17, you could probably see it to the left of where you are. That is the chapel, remember. Is there any other numbers on the ground floor that you can't remember from last
what was 11?
11 is the kitchen.
7 was a cloakroom. 14 was...
Pantry?
That's the pantry, yeah.
Yeah.
So 12 is the scullery, so that's where all the food but all the cleaning equipment. 13 is the cellar stairs. 17 is the chapel. 27 is the library, and the rest 15 are unused, and 7 is the cloakroom.
Well, I suppose we could go to the chapel if that's what you really wanted, Mr.
Well, I was just looking at this one on the left. Cross, Jesus Christ. Maybe something that looks like a steeple. Church to me. Good eye.
That is kind of what I was thinking, but it could also be an arrowhead. And if it's an arrowhead, it's pointing out the door, which could be pointing towards something, or it could still just be indicative of somebody slamming through here and knocking things to the ground quietly.
It might be worth having a look in the chapel. If you look at them constructively, it could be a marking left by one of the servants for whoever broke in last night to do all this tomfoolery, to which rooms to do it in.
That is quite fair. And in a sense, the chapels were one of the first libraries.
We haven't checked the chapel, but if you look at the other two markings, the middle one could be the parlour, and the one on the right-hand side could be referring to the trophy room and the billiard room.
Oh, perhaps indeed.
Good eye.
That you do have good eye, better than myself, I suppose. That's very, very much interesting. Let's go to the chapel. Let's take our conversation there. Yes.
Yes. Good idea, Bleeker. Chapel.
So as you sort of head out, you see Howard there, and he says, "Oh, just to let you know, I saw a servant. She was crying in the chapel."
Crying in the chapel?
No, sorry, I was making it up.
I know.
Wondered,
oh no!
I saw her crying in the chapel.
The tears that she wept were tears of joy.
Quite possibly.
Does she know the meaning of contentment?
Exactly. I sent you a Discord message.
Who?
Mr.
Me.
Oh, I was going to say I didn't get it.
Did you get it?
Yes.
Can you see what I'm referring to?
Yes, indeed. And I'd like to point that out, Mr. Peabody. And you could theoretically make a cross out of the third symbol as well. You know, it's not as pronounced, of course, but it could be a cross in a grave.
So when you go into the chapel, it is the shutters and the windows looked as if they've been shut for probably the whole millennium. The whole area is very dusty and damp, and almost like the air in here's obviously it hasn't been aerated for some time. It sort of like is the whole area is sort of like occupied by a huge almost like altar. It seems to be made up of some kind of wooden mahogany cabinet, and on top of it on either side are two you think they might be brass or bronze, you don't think they're gold, candlesticks with candles that look like they've recently been replaced and are quite tall. And you do notice that round the edge of the candlesticks there's dripped wax, and you think that these candles are replaced on a regular basis. You also notice that there's a picture of the Virgin Mary on there as well, and there's also smaller pictures of what you think are the heirs that you think have probably
Charles and Walter
died, and they're sort of like set out, and then there seems to be 4 chairs in here. You do notice quite strangely that they're not facing the altar. They are actually around a table that is lengthways to the actual altar. So it's sort of like that,
right?
But inside the church, inside the chapel.
And then the chairs are on either side. 4 chairs.
Yeah.
Which would be really weird. More like somebody was having a meeting rather than.
Yeah. If anybody's got an occult roll it now.
This guy does.
Yeah, I have a high occult as well.
I would like to spend luck though on this. 7 points in my case.
Yeah.
I
to go standard.
Okay then. Mr. Bleeker, you can see that over the table there's a cloth, and there's also what appears to be some kind of wine glass in the middle. It's sort of like knocked over, and you figured that this is it looks like they've had a seance here. If you remember, seances and spiritualism is very popular in the Victorian era, and it looks like they maybe have been trying to get in touch with Sir William. Yeah.
I'll share that information.
He'll pick up the goblet and sniff it.
Yeah, there's no smell to it at all.
Water, probably. Not nothing more than water.
Is water normally the drink of choice in a seance like this, or
no?
How the devil would I know?
It looks like the glass looks like it's bone dry. It doesn't look like it's had any liquid in it at all.
Would it be fair to assume that maybe it's like the vibrations or something are supposed to play into this?
Yeah, you figure it's what people put their fingers on, and then you would think that they might have some kind of board that the glass would move around. Spelling, is there anyone there? Yes. Who's there? William.
I hope he would have just put Bill, otherwise it would have been there.
He includes his title too.
Yeah. Just out of interest, both of you realise that this place probably hasn't been used as a chapel for some time.
Everybody's going to say, anything look out of place, Bleeker?
Well,
anything out of the ordinary man?
This entire table's kind of out of the ordinary. Doing a seance in a chapel seems inappropriate to me.
They probably believe that their dead one is close to God. You can't get much closer to God than a chapel.
I suppose, but it seems profane to do these occult matters in a churchly
Four
place.
chairs. Four chairs. Who are you thinking, man? Who are you thinking?
Probably not the daughter, Ursula. It was probably. Well, I
There
don't
could
really
be,
know.
it could be servants doing it.
Do you need a minimum amount for a séance?
Well, I mean, that's probably debatable between different groups. I mean, I don't think they actually work, but it's an interesting concept. I would think that the more spirits you have in life, the stronger your pull towards the other side of life, death. But I've never been to a successful seance. Have you, Mr. Peabody?
No, don't believe in all that tomfoolery.
Yes.
A walk might be in order, though. Leaker, a quick walk before we start to question the servants. Wouldn't mind checking the outside of the house, the grounds, you know. Maybe have a look at outside the billiard room, see whether or not there's any more footprints leading the way.
I was hoping to go through the cemetery and just double check some of the records I have of everything.
You did your library checks in 27 last time, didn't you?
The main thing I want to do is investigate the cemetery to make sure all the dates are the same as the information we got from the history. Just double checking.
Okay. Anything else that you would like to do out and about in the grounds?
Because we're allowed to question the servants now.
Yeah, I was just thinking
we might go and have a quick word with Mckenzie.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, is there anything else you want to check out on the grounds? Before I'm just thinking that it's about break time, so it would be appropriate for you to search the grounds, and when you come back, I can say the answer to the question.
Number 2 is
the stables.
Number 3
is the groundskeeper's cottage,
which we haven't met yet.
No.
Okay.
Is that the whitewashed building?
Yeah.
Number 4 is the cemetery, and number 5 was...
You probably think James Mckenzie, that's probably where James Mckenzie lives.
Where's that, sorry?
Number 3.
Number 3?
Yeah.
The groundsman's cottage?
Yeah. You think he's probably in charge of all that.
Just little sheds.
Little sheds. Number 5 is the lake.
Right.
And number 4 is the cemetery.
Okay. All right, so... the other thing that Peabody wants to look at when they go is depending on whether or not Mademoiselle Ducray and Ursula have gone out, but he wants to see which direction their tracks go in the snow, to see which way they take their recreational walk, and whether or not it's on the grounds or whether or not they leave the
Okay then, so you can head off outside, and when we come back from the break, I'll be able to tell you what you find out and what you see before you go off and question Mr. Mckenzie. So if you're watching the stream, then thank you very much for joining us this evening for the Call of Cthulhu adventure. Just to remind you, it's set in Victorian times, 1888 in England, hence the accents, etc. So we will be back in about 10 minutes. Until then, please do make sure you go off and get yourself a drink and go and have a walk around, and come back to see what happens after the break, as the players and the investigators continue to try to explain the mysterious going on at Bargrove Hall. We will see you in 10 minutes. And I will press AFK.
Yeah. Let's get over the top.
Yeah, hello, we are back. We are rested, and I've had some grapes because I'm trying to eat healthily. Mr. Pickles has had a burger.
I had a slice of ham and another glass of this Prosecco that I'm drinking. They're big glasses as well.
Prosecco?
Yeah.
Isn't that like white wine?
Oh, it's just like fizzy wine. It's unbelievable.
Is it nice?
Oh, you wouldn't like it because you're teetotal.
I don't drink, yeah.
But for anybody who...
There's a lot of things.
all the men in the room, it's lovely.
A lot of the students buy Prosecco.
Yeah, because it's cheap. It's fizzy, so because it's fizzy, the alcohol gets into your bloodstream a lot quicker.
Really?
I used to do gin slammers, which were basically a gin and tonic, but because tonic's really, really fizzy anyway, you used to get it. You used to put your hand over the top of it. You used to shake it up to get it really fizzy, and then you used to neck it, and it was called a gin slammer. Absolutely gorgeous stuff.
Okay, so back to Victorian times.
They don't have it in Victorian times.
Can I remove these purple signs?
I think I have them written down. I do indeed.
Are you all right?
Yes.
Were these exactly how they were written? For example, the last one with the intersecting thing, it had gone over
the bone had been placed over. Yeah. Okay, so you out and about, and just to sort of like to give you some information about out and about. So the first thing there is snow out on the grounds. It's about an inch deep, and there's very few footprints, and you sort of like go round the outside of the building.
Has it snowed during the night? Are our footprints from this morning?
Oh yes, it's definitely snowed throughout the evening, and night. But you sort of like go round the parlour and billiard room and the trophy room, and you can't see any footprints on the ground at all. If anything, it's your footprints that are the first ones. Mr. Bleeker, you go to number 4, which is the cemetery. Can you just roll for me a spot hidden roll?
Do I go there as well, or does he go there by himself?
Well, I was just moving into the cemetery as you did your...
Right, okay, yeah, I didn't know whether or not we were...
you when you get there, there's snow just like everything else. All the dates match up, and there's no recently unearthed soil or anything like that. It doesn't look like something has risen itself from the dead. If anything, it looks the only sort of like the newness of it is Sir William's grave and the headstone, which is there. But yeah, all the date seems to be fine as well. Somebody asked about where Mademoiselle Ducray and Ursula take the morning constitution. You actually see them in the ornamental gardens. That's where they take their walk. They don't head off site or anything like that.
Okay, and when Peabody catches up to Bleeker, probably outside the cemetery. So there's 3 graves, is there? I take it.
Yeah.
There's Charles, Walter, and Williams.
Yeah.
So William has been laid to rest in the
correct
in the earth.
Correct.
The police aren't still doing any type of...
No, he has been laid to rest in the grave,
okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you go over to number 2, the stables.
Mm-hmm.
And Mckenzie is actually there unplaiting and trying to comb out the manes and the tails of the horse. He seems to be muttering and grumbling as he does it. Is this an area that you would like to engage in? Okay, just 1 second.
Before going in, is there only one entrance? Is there only sort of like the stable doors?
Well, it's open. It's like a proper stable.
Right.
So they have sort of like.
Are there any other footprints that we can see if we go around the back of it? Are there any footprints leading away from the place?
No, I mean there's plenty of footprints.
But probably done by Mckenzie.
Yeah, and there's not sort of like a set of footprints going off onto the moors, and they're not sort of like deep as if they were carrying something or anything like that. It looks absolutely fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to cover the questioning, Mr. Pickles, or?
I think we'll be both questioning.
Okay.
I guess what we just need to know more about what he saw, right?
Yeah. So Willard, Peabody will go in, and as he goes through the door, he'll say, "Mckenzie."
And he sort of like looks up from the sort of like his work and sort of like looks at you, and he sort of like nods his head in a almost like a subservient manner and says, "Morning, sirs."
Oh, happened before, you say? How long ago? Before the death of Sir William, or afterwards?
I'm sorry, sir. What are you referring
the
to?
platting of the mains.
After, sir.
After. Right.
Melvin's going to interrupt and walk forward and say, perhaps I can help you clean this filthiness, pointing at the tangles. We just have a few questions, and I'm sure it would help you out.
He looks at you and he says, sorry, sir, are you familiar with horses?
No, but I am an expert at cleaning messes.
Maybe I'll stick to what I know I can do, but thank you very much for your offer of help.
This happens pretty often then, the tangling, this mess?
This is the third time since Sir William passed on.
Third. What's the frequency between these times?
Sometimes a day, sometimes two.
No, not like a pattern. Not like some of the boys from the village coming up here to pull a hideous prank upon you.
I wouldn't. Definitely think probably be the villagers. They probably managed to kill the late Sir William as well.
Is that who you think is doing it then? Villagers?
Most probably, sir.
I mean, we're going down there later on to ask questions.
Yes, is there anybody there that might do us harm, or wish us harm for being associated here?
Harm, as in attack you, sir?
I wouldn't want to. I read quite a bit in the library, and it sounds that there's some animosity. Oh, sorry, some mutual dislike for each other between these two places. Yes.
I think it's more that. Roll your fast talk.
I would love to. Pow. No.
Do you wish to push it? So
Ooh.
remember, if you push it, then there will be some. When if you were successful or if you failed, there'll be a certain outcome in addition to just getting the information that might be available.
The classic Aaron Weber versus a door situation.
Correct, yeah. Or you could use 12 points of luck if you wish.
I'm going to be a little bit more stingy with my luck, this character. I'm not going to push it.
Okay.
Why did you run out of luck last adventure or something?
Aaron Weber had like almost no luck at the end. He's sitting there with 7 sanity and like 8 luck.
You had 4. You had
4 luck.
You had 7 sanity and 4 luck remaining. And the only reason why is because I know that is because I have his character sheet out so I can see the skills. not the skills that Weber had, but just the general skills, So because when Aaron Weber and Dr. King were doing it, I had Mr. Weber's sheet out, so I can just see the skills. Yeah, he's sort of like I forget what you were asking him
about you were saying about the mutual hate between the villagers and the Allingtons.
Yeah, Mckenzie definitely doesn't think you would be harmed there, but he is sort of like he definitely has some animosity towards the villagers for some unknown reason. He frequently sort of like says, that they are more than likely to kill them. Oh yeah. He sort of like says to you, I think you were asking why did they not like the people in the hall, and he sort of like, he did get your fast talk roll, but he sort of like turns around and says, well, it's probably not the hall that they don't like, maybe more the decisions that were made by the hall. And interestingly enough, decisions made by the hall, well, should I say Sir William's decision, that's probably why they didn't like him that much, and probably why he, shall we just say, has departed this world.
Decision? What decisions did he make in his seat of power?
You do know what Sir William was doing?
No, man. What was he doing?
Well,
spit it out.
With the land beyond Bargrove, Hobb's Field.
Does that belong to the prison?
No, belongs to the manor.
Well, if it belongs to the manor, he could do with what the devil he wants with it.
Yes, sir. Of course he can.
What was he planning on doing with it? Growing some crops?
Whatever he wished to do with it, sir.
But why would that make the villagers mad?
It's probably best to talk to the villagers about that. As Mr. Peabody mentioned, it's definitely they should have just conformed. Maybe.
Indeed. Man's land, he could do what he wants with it.
Precisely, sir. Exactly, sir. Now, sir, may I continue with my job now?
Yes, Mckenzie. Just after lunch, visit to the.
Yes, sir. I'll have the carriage round to the front after lunch. So.
Excellent. Good man. Yes. Anything else, Bleeker?
I think that's about it. You wouldn't note any disturbances, would you, Mckenzie, in the instances of the horses being harassed?
No, sir. Nothing at all, sir.
Not a single sound.
No, sir.
Stall door slamming.
Didn't hear anything at all last night.
No, sir. Nothing at all.
Heavy sleeper.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, then that's all the questions I have.
You definitely get a feeling that Mckenzie has altered his tone after Mr. Peabody started to say, almost like pulled social rank, and sort of like said, oh yes, that's his right, that's what he should do. And he almost like, Mckenzie almost like slipped back into his servitude role. And from then on, he was more agreeing, and obviously didn't want to go against what Mr. Peabody was saying. He certainly was very much. It seemed he was very much aware about the social class and what he should be doing, but he seemed quite courteous about it. He didn't sort of like say anything negative or anything. He was probably quite aware of his place. Yeah, so you leave the stables as he sort of like is plaiting the horses, unplaiting, sorry, the horses' manes, and he's agreed to have it round for lunchtime. So, do you want to go back to the house? Is that the plan?
Yeah, we're going to go back to the house. As we're walking back, Peabody is saying, what are your thoughts?
I think we need to figure out what this decision was. It seems very important if the villagers are to blame for the killing. This might be a strange point to note this, but I had a pretty bad dream last night of this Sir William. Saw him tied to a stone and burned. I figure some constellation must be causing some kind of.
Did you not find something in the library along those lines as well?
Of being tied to stones and burned. I didn't find anything like that in the books, I don't believe, though. Oh wait, no.
What you mentioned something about the Roman era.
The burnt grove.
Sacrificing. Do they sacrifice on stones?
They sacrificed on many instruments, I'm sure.
Yeah, you got the there was various information that you got from the library, and one of them was an extract of the history of Bargrove Parish. It was a slim leatherwork book, dated printed privately about 1750, and it by somebody called Thomas Worthington, and you've actually got their handout in your sheets on Roll20, I think.
Dartmoor in Roman days.
Say again, sorry.
Is it called Dartmoor in Roman days?
In the time of Emperor Claudius.
Oh.
And just further down, only one man survived to. It talks about travelling to what is now today called Dartmoor. The legionnaires discovered druid priests engaged in human sacrifice, a sacrifice outlawed by Caesar within the burnt grove. The legion fell upon the bearded priests, but the druids called their allies, and the people of Hollow Hills, and by their magic and by the power of the old gods the Romans were defeated. Only one man survived to tell the tale, and he was mad. This event is placed by my reckoning in the vicinity of Bargrove village, whose name might well be a corruption of Burnt Grove. Perhaps to the hill the locals called Eagle Tor. On the hill the locals called Eagle Tor in approximately 48 AD. Interestingly enough, the 9th Hispana was considered a cursed legion thereafter, and vanished to the last man in the midst beyond Hadrian's Wall.
Yeah, other interesting thing about the passage that you mentioned, Bleecker, it referred to the old gods. Didn't the curse, the alleged curse, refer to the same thing?
Yeah, so it's interesting to me, I guess, because in my memory serves of the book, it was a horse thief that caused the curse to be cast.
Yeah,
gypsies.
Yeah, a gypsy. That's right. A gypsy boy. It was a stole of a horse, and the then Sir Montague apprehended the gypsy boy of a tender age. He had to seize stealing horses from Bargrove Hall, and of course Montague beat the lad to death in a frenzy, and the boy's mother, apparently some kind of wise woman, placed a curse upon the son's murderer and his offspring, and the exact words of the curse were, "As my boy hath died young, so shall ye and your sons, until the old gods awaken and night becomes day."
I don't read in much to all this polycoddle, but certain things seem to add up in it, don't they?
Well, the coincidences are certainly intriguing.
Yeah, I'm thinking, young boy, who the Lord of the Manor murdered for the curse to take place. Well, horses. Well, that's what he was doing, wasn't he? And a grudge against the Lord of the Manor.
Yes, he was a hot-blooded rogue, I believe.
Seems to add up onto last night's tomfoolery.
Mr. Bleeker, can you roll your occult skill for me, please?
Yes. Kapow.
Yeah, just
Can I
when
roll mine?
I wouldn't have thought you have an occult roll.
I do have a very small one.
Is it just the standard one?
No, it's slightly more.
I would have thought you, because isn't Mr. Peabody sort of like dead against the occult and everything like that?
The only bit that he looked into the occult was the death of his fiancée, and he looked into the sign that was on her door, and couldn't get anything.
Okay, got you. Yeah,
but he does have a bit of a.
Okay.
But it's all right.
Yeah, I think you would need to have more interest in the occult. But Mr. Bleeker, when Mr. Peabody is talking about the horses, etc., and mentions about the braiding and plaiting and things like that, and something comes to your mind that you remember, and you suddenly remember that the braiding and plaiting of and tangling of almost like horses' manes, but also people's as well, is actually very reminiscent of fairies, as in Faeries.
Fairies.
Yeah, and you do remember seeing
people of the Fae.
Yeah, people of the Fae, and you do remember now, almost like putting these two together. You remember reading something in the library about it, and you sort of like nip and get the book, and you remember a passage. And I'm just going to add it to your journals. You should be able to see it now.
Ooh.
So, also known as the Little People, the folk of the Hollow Hills, the wee folk, and in Wales, an unpronounceable Welsh name that I'm not even going to.
Tylwyth Teg.
The fairies are claimed to be nature spirit, by others etheric elementals. Anyway, that's the piece of information that you remember. The interesting thing that really comes to your attention is, number one, a paragraph in the middle. And both are sensitive and easily offended, bestowing curses, ill luck, or even death upon those whom they dislike. Even the less benevolent fairies are mischievous, such as brownies, who inhabit houses, and while inhabitants are asleep, carry out tasks left unfinished. All the brownie expects from this is a bowl of milk or cream each night. If insulted, perhaps by offering clothes to the small naked figure or maltreating the lazy servants, the brownie may fly into a rage or depart forever. Angered brownies punch and pinch sleepers, throw things about, and wail and scream. The other thing that you will notice is further down, It says, and as the Cornish Devoners knockers who inhabit mines, their nocturnal tappers leading to miners to rich veins of tin, pixies native to Dartmoor, tiny figures similar to brownies who have most often seen dancing at night, knot their fingers in horses' manes and ride them wildly across the countryside, leaving the beasts exhausted come morning, and trooping fairies, the fairy nobility, graceful and fair. So yeah, that sort of like comes back to you. Yeah, I'm just going to reveal for you, just while you ponder that, I'm going to reveal the upstairs. Okay, so I'm just assuming that you will go around it this morning sometime. So I just want to sort of like reveal it, and then you can decide whether or not which of the servants you wish to interrogate a question. So just as I go through it, 25. Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. 25 is the stairs down to the hall, etc., etc., and 24 is the upper balcony. 26, you know, is the entrance hall. 26 is the stairs to the attic.
Yeah.
Do you wish to go up there as well?
To begin with, we'll probably just limit ourselves to the.
Okay, that's fine. So.
People of class would go.
So
They can come to us.
Number so if you number 18 over in the corner, if you remember, that's the master bedroom,
which we now have access to. Is that correct?
Yeah. Howard will unlock it for you if needed. 19 over in the corner there. That's Ursula's room, and number 20 next door to it is a school room. So think of it almost like a playroom, but Ursula also takes lessons in there. Also, number 21 is the nanny's room, but of course that is Mademoiselle Ducray's room. 22 up here is actually a spare room, although it is the room that Lady Allingham is actually staying in at the moment. She's sleeping in that room because she doesn't feel comfortable sleeping in the master bedroom due to the happenings. 23, they are both bathrooms, and the other 22, that's where Mr. Bleecker is staying.
Yeah.
Okay, is that it?
That's everything, I do believe.
You do notice that there are some servants going up into the attic, and you are told that that is the attic and the servants' quarters. Okay, so it's I'm just going to reveal it for you. You'll see it above the cellar.
Right. Yes.
And that's not to scale.
Yeah, it says that.
Yeah. Okay then. Cool. Yeah. So So you are welcome to do one of two things. You can only probably get one of them done before luncheon, and then going down to the Bargrove village. So would you prefer to question the servants or explore the first floor before lunch? You could do the other one after lunch, after you've been to Bargrove. It's up to you which one you do first. I know you're interested in the master's bedroom.
Yeah, I think I mean, from Peabody's point of view, he would probably prefer to do the examination of the rooms first, because we've been given permission this morning.
Okay, yeah, that's
do
cool.
Yep. Unless Bleecker has any other thoughts on it.
I agree that we should do that, and I think that the closer to nightfall that we interrogate the servants, maybe the closer to their memories of what happens during the night.
Okay, cool. So which room would you like to start off with? All are available for your investigation.
The first room that we would
you can move your characters.
Like to okay, I'm gonna see my character. Oh yes, there it is.
He's crying in the chapel.
Yes, to get it over with, the master bedroom will be the first room that we.
Okay then. So this room is locked, and Howard, the butler, comes up and unlocks it for you, and he looks like he's actually waiting outside. And you do question him, why is it kept?
When was?
Yeah, well,
has it been locked up since?
It's been locked since the happening started, and Lady Allingham left that room to go to 22. Howard also mentions that he feels that it needs to be kept locked to prevent Ursula from entering the room.
Mm-hmm. Has Peabody wants to say the strange happenings around the house. Anything happened in this room before? That you know of, Howard?
Only things moving, sir. From place to place, and also the lady won't mind me saying that she had somewhat disturbed night sleeping due to a dream, sir.
Right, yeah, excellent. What is it, Bleeker?
I had a bad dream too, and I was just curious if she had a similar dream. I have a theory if the constellations might be giving bad dreams. It doesn't matter, Howard. I'm sorry.
Best to ask her.
Yes. Sorry, Howard.
Sorry, is Mr. Peabody pronouncing his name wrong on purpose or not?
Bleeker.
Yeah, because you keep saying Beaker.
I don't. I keep saying Beaker.
No, you keep saying Beaker. You keep saying Mr. Beaker.
It's a power play. I
didn't know whether or not.
I'm not doing it on purpose.
All right, that's all right. I didn't know whether or not you were doing
until you mentioned it just then. I wasn't even aware that I was doing it.
Yeah, I just
it's
didn't
just
know.
That, you know what I'm like with Beaker.
Well, I know that you mentioned it your last adventure as well. So yeah, and like Mr. Pickles was saying, I didn't know whether or not you were doing a power play. To put him more in his position.
No.
Okay. So
I actually have it written down on my pad, just so that I can remember that it's Bleeker rather than Beaker.
Excellent.
But I just have to keep looking at it, and when I'm role playing out and just saying things, it may sometimes just come out as Beaker, but I don't do it on purpose.
So remember the doorway into Dr. King's room, if you remember, that was locked. I said that beforehand. The fireplace in front of Mr. Bleeker there, it hasn't been lit for some time, days rather than weeks, but definitely at least 4 days, maybe even 5. Apart from that, the room looks undisturbed. The windows are shuttered, and it's quite dark in here. You can see the light coming in from the doorway. Is there anything else you would like to know or check out?
Any large bits of furniture? I take it there's a double bed.
Yeah, there's a double bed, 4 posters. There's like an ottoman at the bottom. There's various like wardrobes containing clothes. There's also like a dressing table that.
Is there anything like a small writing desk or anything where correspondence might have been done?
No, that generally wouldn't be done in the master bedroom. That would be down in the parlour.
Okay. Peabody's going to have a look under the bed.
Yeah.
He's going to pull up his trousers so that his knees don't get thing, and he's just going to have a look underneath.
Yeah, you probably think that there's some lapses in the cleaning regime here, because there is some dust in the middle. But apart from that, there's no bogeyman underneath the bed.
Are there any dishes of any kind, like a soup bowl or anything in this bedroom?
There is, of course, the typical bowl and jug of water, and there are some chamber pots to one side, but they are clean and empty. It looks like they haven't been used for any significant time.
Peabody wants to go over to the window. It's shuttered at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
He wants to open the shutters and just open the have a look at the glass behind it. Make sure that see whether or not the window is shut behind it.
Yeah, it is.
Could I quietly open up whatever container he has for food, or for clothing, like an armoire or something, and look to see if any of the clothing is disturbed?
Well, it all seems to be hung up or folded very neatly. It doesn't look like it's been ransacked or anything like that. Obviously, you don't know whether or not any of the contents have been moved around, because, of course, you have no reference point. So the chamber pots might have been moved, but you wouldn't know where they were to identify that. It almost looks as if the whole room has just suddenly been left. It's very neat, it's very tidy, but it definitely looks as if there was a decision made to leave the room as it was. And the bed hasn't been slept in for. So
doors are kept locked as well, Bleeker.
Yes.
I mean, anybody who was causing the tomfoolery from here would be locked in. They would have to have the key themselves.
Yes, unless they could climb out the window.
The only person that you are aware has a key to this room is obviously Lady Allingham would have one, and the only other person that you've seen with a key opening is Howard, and that would be it.
Do we know of an area that maybe they store keys or anything, or are these keys like on a little rope around their neck? Or
you notice that the key to this room appears to be situated in the front the waistcoat pocket of Mr. Howard.
I'd like to approach
as they're going out. We'll mention it to Howard anyway.
Gotcha.
Mention
keys. So
so the
keys. Howard.
Yeah, the only two people who has a key to the room is Howard himself and Lady Allingham, and that is similar to all the lockable doors. So mainly the outside doors, the doors that go outside. There seems to be locks on most of the internal rooms as well. However, these are kept with either Howard or Lady Allingham, and that's it.
Peabody also wants to inquire about servant activity during the night, whether or not anybody's responsible for going round making sure that everything's shuttered. Or
okay, so do you want to have a discussion with Howard now?
Roughly what time is it?
Well, yeah, you've probably, like I said before, you've got time to do either explore the first floor fully, or question the servants fully. But I mean, if you want to do the master's room, then question Howard, and that's absolutely fine. And then you can go off to the village and then come back and do one or the other later on.
As long as we don't miss lunch.
Oh no, you won't miss lunch. I won't let you. So is it the plan then to discuss things ask Howard questions now? Or do you want to continue doing the first floor and then leave the questioning to, like you originally said, to nearer nightfall?
Oh,
actually, we should continue doing the floor because we want to get.
The only reason I was going to question, I was just going to ask him that question. it was purely because he was out there, and when I still because I've forgotten what he had said down by the parlour that we were going to ask him about, that he said that he couldn't discuss it.
So room 23, those are the bathrooms.
I mean, we'll put our heads in them.
Yeah, I'll give you some information. They're very clean and tidy. You know, they look very well organised, etc. Room 22 at the far end, Lady Allingham's room, that is very neat and tidy, very similar to the master bedroom. But it definitely has that finesse of a woman about it. There are some wardrobes around that has a range of quite suitable dresses. However, it seems that Lady Allingham prefers to wear her black in mourning for her husband. Number 21, Mademoiselle Dugray's room, is very clinical and quite Spartan. It literally has a single bed, a bedside table, a desk, some kind of small wardrobe and a chest of drawers, and that's it. The wardrobe's not substantial in any way. It's quite minimalistic. 19, which is Miss Ursula's room, is a typical child 8 room. You know, it has, it's quite light and airy, and the fire is ablaze, and there's a nice single bed in here, but very flush and plush, sort of like covers, etc. There's various sort of like almost like prams and dolls' houses around the place. It looks almost as much of a playroom as a bedroom, and this is the number 20 is more of a schoolroom. You can see that there's easels in here that have got various French vocabulary written out on it. Does anybody speak French?
No. Just a quick question though. In number 19, which is Ursula's bedroom, is there any toys that are more suitable for a boy rather than a girl? Or do they all seem like girly toys? Like boy soldiers or...
Oh, right. Roll your spot hidden. There seems to be no toy soldiers there. I mean, it looks like a typical girly girl room. Mm-hmm. So there's some French vocabulary on the chalkboard, on the blackboard side. You can see it, but you're not too sure what it says. It's written in quite elaborate and flowery cursive text. And it's all like it's obviously some kind of you think it might be something to do with past tenses, in which French verbs take être as their past tense, and which ones take avoir in the past participles and things like that, but you're not too sure. There's also things like a globe in there, etc, etc. Apart from that, it looks very formal. There's a single desk that has quills in and some kind of writing book, and then there's various sort of like textbooks. There's some of the classic writing books of, you know, fiction books of this time, but it looks quite, for want of a better word, it looks quite normal.
On the way round, Peabody's going to ask Bleeker whether or not from the books in the library he saw anything about the Allingham family tree, and whether or not there's the male bloodline finished with the death of William.
Yes, yeah, that is well known. There's no other. There's not another child in the room, in the house, so it would be quite reasonable to say that.
I think I knew that before we even got to Dartmoor.
Yeah.
I was from my research in the library, I think.
Yeah.
But Peabody's point of view is that if there is this so-called curse that is affecting the males of the Allingham bloodline, then maybe they're keeping a child secret.
Oh.
Hence, him asking the certain question about the footprints, whether or not there was any other children in the house, whether or not there was any male toys, because
That makes sense.
they would be trying to maybe hide the fact that there had been another child being born, so that the so-called curse, which is probably looks like the villagers actually taking revenge, might not happen.
Well, talking about the villagers, it's probably time for luncheon, and then you can make your way down to Bargrove, the village.
Can I ask one question about the room 19 first?
Yeah.
This might be a silly question, but my theory is a little different. All of the dolls have outfits, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's good enough.
What was your theory?
My theory is that this is the gypsy wise woman summoned the fairies to curse, and they're like the actual cursors of this situation. And my theory is if somebody accidentally gave a gift of clothing, that would just make them enraged, and maybe they'd go off their track of just cursing the men and start to mess around with the house. I think it was the brownies specifically.
Yeah.
It said that did that. So my theory is that Faye might be involved.
Okay, so you eat luncheon, and Lady Allingham is not there at luncheon, but Mademoiselle Ducre's there, and so is Ursula. And then shortly after, dead on time, the carriage is pulled up outside, ready to take you to Bargrove, the village. Now, what I'm going to do for you, if you remember, I'll just put you on this map first. So if you remember, this is where you came. So you can see where Bargrove Hall is. And then just here is Bargrove, the village. And that's where you're heading off to. So what I'm going to do is that we're going to assume that when Mckenzie takes you down there, he shows you the town, the village. So you can see what's there and what's not there. Yeah. So can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, I just need to zoom out a bit.
Yeah. So I've left the reference there for you. So number one's the village green. Okay. So it's you can see that it's got a little pond on it. Number two is the Bull and Bear pub. Number three is the village pond. Number four is the post office. Number five, and definitely the major feature of the town, is St George's Church. Number six, right there up at the top, are a series. It's just not one house there. There's a series of cottages, and Mckenzie refers to them as the outsider cottages. Number seven, you can see, is the village forge. It makes things like wagon wheels and things like that, not the chocolate variety, the other one. Number eight is the school, and then you can see that the little lines round the houses, those are actually dry stone walls. The X's are signposts saying where to go, etc. And then finally, the rest is sort of like the track that leads down. Is there anything you would like to ask from Mr. Mckenzie as you enter the village?
I mean, the thing that Peabody's interested in is who would be best to talk to concerning the differences between the village and the Allinghams.
Yeah, Mckenzie says the best place to converse with these less
Bull and Bear pub
would be the Bull and Bear pub. Yeah.
Melvin would like to know more about what makes the outsider cottages outsiders. Are they just? Is it just because they have to walk further to get to town, or?
No, and Mackenzie's quite clear about this, and he almost like he seems to almost like be going back to talk about something. And Mr. Bleeker, you might have even ridden up at the front with him and left Mr. Peabody to ride inside, and you almost like can have that conversation away from class in that position. And he just roll your fast talk, Mr. Bleeker.
All right.
It's to do with the amount of information I give you, as always. So you get the following information. He mentions that the outsiders are they are people that have been brought in by the hall to do general jobs on the farms, etc. You both of you, Mr. Peabody and Mr. Bleeker, what you have to understand is that this land is owned by Bargrove Hall. You know, these houses belong to the manor, and it's almost as if the manor is allowing this village to continue. The manor has complete rights to flatten the village, you know, and Mr. Mckenzie tells you that the inhabitants of Number 6, the outsider cottages, were told that their tenancy had come up, had finished, and they had to leave. Some of them stayed in the village but went into different houses. Some left out to outlying farms, etc. And then Sir William brought in outsiders, so people who had nothing to do with the town, but are being paid by the manor, by Bargrove Hall, and their job is to do things like ploughing land, keeping things tidy, etc. But the initial thing that Mr. Mckenzie tells you about is that they were told, initially brought in to remove a standing stone that is actually up at the top. You can see it's called Hobb's Field, and while telling you this, Mr. Mckenzie drives out to that fork in the road and points out to Hobb's Field. I'm just going to move you back to this map, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to show you a bit more of this part. You should be able to. The M is moors, by the way. It just says the moors, but you should be able to see Hobb's Field now out in the distance. And Mr. Mckenzie is quite clear that the outsiders were brought in to remove the standing stone from Hobb's Field in order to make it agricultural land. He says, he goes on to say, strange thing is, the outsiders removed the standing stone, but it appears that the villagers have put it back because it definitely wasn't there. It was taken down, but now, as you can see, it's still up. And yeah, there's like an obelisk shape standing stone in the middle of the field.
Does it look like the one from my nightmare?
Yes.
Oh no.
It looks like it's about 10 feet in height, it's almost like a grey monolith, and it's crudely shaped from the distance that you are. It was pulled down less than 2 weeks ago, Mckenzie says, but now it is standing. Nobody really knows how it got back there, although Mckenzie refers to the villagers as being the people to do it. If you wish to go out there, he can take you out there now. Either of you can roll an occult roll.
Just quickly, when he was mentioning the village, he made no mention of any constabulary. I suppose that comes from Princetown, does it?
Princeton, yeah, most definitely. Mr. Bleeker, you're not too sure, but you do you want to look it?
I shall use full luck.
Yeah. Okay then. So the word Hobb's Field is, you think it could be a reference to Robin Goodfellow, known also, if you know your Shakespeare, known also as Puck or Hobb, a fairy mortalised in William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, if you know it. And
personally, I don't, but make an education roll with Peabody to see whether or not.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, he does. The other thing that you do know for the initial roll is that fairies are also known as hobgoblins in other parts of Britain. So the origin of the field's name might be using that the first part of hobgoblin as Hobb's Field. You also remember that Old Hobb was also the name for the devil in medieval times. And yeah, that's all you know.
I don't know whether or not I missed the information before. Do we know where William Allingham was actually originally found, dead or very badly burnt?
His body.
I don't know whether or not we didn't get. Yeah, I don't know whether or not we didn't get the information.
Mackenzie's quite happy to give that over to you, Mr. Bleeker, on the carriage ride. He was found tied to the standing stone in Hobb's Field.
Just like my nightmare.
So, moving you back to.
What do you think, Mr. Do you want to have a look at Hobstone first?
Out of game, I think what we should do, considering we don't necessarily know much more about this, I think we should go to town and figure out how the people feel about the Bargrove Hall nobles, and also about that obelisk. See what local legend might be, and gather as much information so that we might be able to go up there. I'm thinking if we go to the pub and the church, those might be the two best places for information.
Yeah, okay then. So, pub first? You can go either or.
Peabody is saying, probably won't be wanting to open up in front of me, though, Bleeker.
You're probably better going to the church.
Different class and all that.
Yeah,
probably best if we be split up. You talk to the common folk. I'll talk to the clergy.
Yeah, that sounds fair enough. I will go on down
Different
to the pub.
class.
Okay, so who would like to go first?
Mr. Bleeker can. Unless you want me to go Bleeker first.
I'd like you to go. Actually, I need a second to think of some
Okay, yeah, so...
So as you approach St. George's Church, you notice from the notice board outside, that the Christian faith is proclaimed to the villagers by a certain Reverend Horace Sherbrooke. Sherbrooke, that's Sherbrooke. Sherbrooke. And you sort of like go into the church and you notice that he's in his proper reverend gowns, and he seems to be fiddling about, reorganizing the prayer cushions as you enter. He looks over 50 years old. He looks quite geriatric in that sense. And he sort of like sees you enter, and he sort of like comes up to you and says, hello, welcome to my humble parish. I don't think we've quite had the honour of meeting. My name is Reverend Horace Sherbrooke, and you might be.
My name is Willard Peabody. Currently guests at the manor.
Oh yes. Well, yes. Yes, quite. Would you like to come and join me? I'm sure that.
Rather cold outside. Do you have tea?
My housekeeper, Miss Pringle, could probably make us tea and cake. If that is possible, that would be absolutely excellent.
Yeah, very, very decent of you. Yes, yes, that would be most enjoyable at this. Very cold outside, very cold.
Yeah, and he takes you. So as Violet Gumby said, no preacher man is that socially awkward. That priest is a fairy in disguise. And
I'll whack him with my cane.
And he takes him across. He takes you to a small cottage nearby. And tea and coffee, tea and cakes in proper china cups and saucers. And there seems to be some rock cakes that Mrs. Pringle has made. He says, now, Mr. Peabody, what brings you to my parish?
I was really looking for some more information about the how shall we put it, the disagreement with the with the villagers of your parish and the owners of the manor.
Oh yes. I of course, yes. You're referring to the standing stone in Hobb's Field.
We are aware of the standing stone. That was where the Lord of the Manor was found, was it not?
Yes. I quite like my proverbs, Mr. Peabody. And one proverb that I'm really well acquainted with is, thou shalt not wake a sleeping lion. It would appear that maybe pushing the villagers with their, shall we say, more pagan beliefs.
Surely you aren't a believer in all of this.
No, Mr. Peabody. That's why I refer to it as pagan.
Yes.
Yes, pagan beliefs. The only God that I worship and celebrate is the one God Almighty.
Our Lord Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you a churchgoer, Mr. Peabody?
Well, I have been known to frequent the establishment on numerous occasions.
Oh, right. Yes. Anyway, yes. What else can I help you with?
I wondered whether or not you knew of anybody who had more of a gripe with the Lord of the Manor.
With the late Sir William.
Someone who might have wished him harm more than.
To be honest with you, Mr. Peabody, and God rest my soul for saying this, I'm sure Mr. Sir William now sits and has been judged by the Lord God Almighty. But while he was on earth, shall we say, Sir William was not one of the repentant nature to be quite brusque with you, sir. Sir William was quite devoid of Christian charity, or indeed humility. Yes. Well,
Yeah, he does have a chapel, up at the manor.
yes. Having something and using it are two quite different things, Mr. Peabody.
The villagers. Who's been here the longest?
There are many people who have been here for some time.
The family line, I mean.
Which family line are you referring to?
The one that's been here the longest. Is there any villagers that have been here, generations?
I think Peggy Ashburn's been here. She sadly lost her husband. Yes, I think she's been here for some time.
Oh, right. Ah, indeed. Well, thank you very much for your for your help.
Oh, yes. Please help yourself to another rock cake.
Were you involved in the in the funeral for Sir William?
I gave a blessing over his grave at the hall.
Excellent.
Yes.
Oh, you've been most helpful.
Oh, thank you. And will we see you at? Are you staying long at the hall?
Within the week we should be away.
Oh, that's fine. Hopefully I can see you at church then. Morning mass, usual time, and then a service later on. It'd be very nice to see new faces coming to my flock, Mr. Peabody. I look forward to seeing you then.
Do you have a lot of congregation with you saying that a lot of the villagers have pagan beliefs?
Yes, they still come along, and the majority of them are part of my flock here in the parish.
Excellent. Yes.
And you carry on talking to him and discussing various things over tea and rock cakes, while Mr. Bleecker heads off to the Bull and Bear, which is in the centre of Bargrove. And once you enter, you can see that even though it's early afternoon, it seems to almost like be the centre of activity as well. And there's various locals sat around in this dark, dingy pub, smoking tobacco and have pewter tankards of ale, you assume. You don't think it's the cleanliest or the cleanest place in the town, and there's that almost like musty air feeling to it. And you go in and you sort of like approach the bar, I assume.
Yes, I'll approach the bar and wait for the barkeep to come around me. I'll order the cleanest tankard of ale that I can, and then I wanted to ask about the barkeep if anybody here would be appropriate for a historian to ask questions to about the local area.
Yes, well, the innkeeper, the barwoman, introduces herself as Peggy Ashburn. She's quite stout, and she's one of these people who has a round face that her cheeks are always appears to be red and blushing, and she's a widower, widower in her 40s, and she's quite open in telling you that her husband died several years ago, being crushed beneath a falling beer barrel, which is quite not very nice. Yeah, so
alarming.
So she sort of like continues to engage with conversation. Yeah, so what would you like to ask her?
I have about 5 questions or line of questioning.
Yeah.
The first one, Peggy, how would you say that the village here, this being the center of your village, I presume, how does everybody feel about Bargrove Hall?
Yeah, well, I need a woman's voice. You know, I need a quite rough woman's voice, which I feel is going to
use your own.
Going into. I think she sort of like says, "Well, to be honest with you, we didn't quite like him. He was a bit of a cold fish, you know, and never actually drank a drop of drink for here. Unlike his two brothers, God rest their souls, they were regular members here."
Were the brothers liked by the congregation here in your pub? I mean, not across the butcher.
I think we lived well alongside the hall, you know, until Mr. Grumpy Pants came along, you know, Sir William.
Oh, he wasn't liked as much by the population? I heard he had some kind of decision.
And she sort of like leans forward to you and says, "Between me and you, and not to talk ill of the dead, ever since he made those innocent people leave their cottages to bring his outsiders in, I think that was definitely his downfall. From then onwards, things went downhill."
How so? I heard something about the stone in Hobb's field. Was that part of the downfall?
You know, there's one thing I say to everyone here, you know, always, you know, even if you don't believe it, always respect people's beliefs. That's what you need to do. Respect their beliefs.
Their beliefs?
Yeah, well, if some believe in fairies, then let them believe in it. The worst thing you could do is probably say it's a whole load of hogwash and, you know, almost like basically tell them that they're losing the marbles.
It's funny that you mentioned this, Peggy. I was hoping to learn a little bit about fairies.
Well, yeah.
I presume you are one of the most knowledgeable people on this subject in the village, yes, Peggy?
Well, actually, I'm not the real person you need to be talking to. There's Deaf Mary. Oh, sorry, Mary. She knows quite a few goings on.
Do you know where I might be able to meet her to talk about fairies?
Yeah, she goes, "Mary! Mary!" And she sort of like bangs on the counter, and this almost like elderly woman who sat really close to the fire sort of like looks around and she goes, "Yes, I'm ready for a top up. No, Mary, this gentleman would like to have a word with you." "Oh, gentleman? Is there a gentleman looking for me? One moment, better make myself look nice." And she pinches her cheeks for a while, and you can go over and talk to her. And she sort of like sat on like a three-legged stool, and she is dressed definitely in layers of clothes that you think probably haven't been removed for some time. And this is almost like reinforced by the gentle waft of human BO and urine that is sort of like coming towards you. And
time to use that charm.
She's sort of like, she look every now and again, she sort of like laughs out loud, and you notice that she has more gaps than teeth, and hands, she's got some knitted gloves on with her fingers exposed, and they look gnarled, and she's obviously a working lady. And you sort of like pick up a stool and sort of like bring them next to her, and she goes, "Oh, you come and sit next to me. You come and sit next to me.
Not that type of working lady either, Mr.
And
your eyes light up.
You notice that as she talks to you, she keeps whacking your thigh with her hand, and she sort of like goes, "So what can Mary do for you, young man?"
Each time she touches my leg and moves her hand, I'll just kind of brush off my leg as subtly and quickly as I can. But I'll say in a loud tone, but I'm not pursing out a loud tone because I don't want to scream at you guys. I'll say, Mary, I was told you knew things about fairies.
Oh, yes. You know, I know a story that's been passed down. It was told to me by my grandmother, and to her by my great-grandmother. And I can remember the day as if it was just yesterday, sat in front of the hearth, just out of that hot bath, you know, that huge metal bath that we used to have, that me and my 6 brothers and sisters all used to share, one after another. Yeah, I remember those days. And we used to sit down just before going to bed and hear the story of the pixie troop, the little folk that lived out in Hobb's field. The story is quite simple. Apparently, there was a troop of pixies that would come out from the stone late at night or in the early morning. The stone would open. It had almost like a door in it. And the door would open and the pixies would come out and join hands and dance and wail and scream around the standing stone. Yeah, the wee folk would like that. And when it was all over, then the door would open and in they would all go and be left. The day or the morning light or dark at night would be left in silence. And, you know, one day, apparently, somebody, because this story's true, the person spied them. He went up there late at night and actually saw them and watched them dancing around. But unbeknownst to him, they saw him as well. And shortly after, he was struck blind. Yeah, he no longer would see those pixies. No. And why was he struck blind? Well, it was his reward. Yes, his reward for spying on what they should not be spying on. Roll your psychology roll.
Okay. Scrolled too far and bam.
Yeah, you figure there's another message in Mary's story and in the tone of her voice, but you're not too sure what it is. There's something nagging at the back of your mind. And as she finishes, another tankard comes over for Mary. And while you're in there, can you just roll your listen roll for me, please?
Yeah. Pow.
Sorry, I'm on a different screen. Yeah. The other thing that you sort of like listen in the background, you also hear that it would appear that Sir William was not liked in the village. There seems to be when they hear you talking to Peggy, you hear sort of like grumbles about him, and also this idea that he was flouting, the villagers' beliefs by trying to remove the standing stone. And you hear a couple of men in the corner who sort of like say things like, well, he got what he deserved. And when Mary finishes the story, he sort of like says, you hear a mutter as somebody says, well, Sir William certainly got his reward, didn't he? And they seem to, it almost like seems to not be a good word being passed around or talking about Sir William. And Mr. Peabody, you sense this as you're walking back round. It appears that there is there's no bad words about Bargrove Hall or the lady of the mansion. It all seems to be directed at Sir William.
And did we get the impression that there was also no bad words about Charles and Walter Allingham?
No, if anything, there were very positive words about Charles and Walter. It's definitely the case that Sir William did something or didn't do something that really annoyed the villagers. And like I said, all the bad thing relates to Sir William.
I have a clarifying question for Mary, if I can.
Yeah, by all means.
I wanted to ask her if because she was talking about the fairies would come out of the stone and dance and scream and whatnot. Was this a particular night of the month or a time of the year that this would happen? Every night?
Oh God. It was said that on a full moon, you know, that when it's burning and so bright in the sky that almost the night seems like day as it's out there and shining down. Almost.
Oh, well, that gives me a flashback to terrible scripture that we read earlier. Night turned into day.
While you're down here, before you go back up to the hall, is there anything else that you would like to investigate round the village?
Oh, go ahead, Chug, if you were gonna say something.
Well, I was thinking it might be worth having a look at the outsiders' cottages and having a word with them and see whether or not they knew why Lord Allingham had actually brought them in.
I have another or more questioning for Mary and or Peggy. So if you wanted to go do that, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Unless you wanted me with you
It's
there.
getting towards the end of the session, isn't it? So.
Yeah. So, what questions do you want for Mary?
I wanted to know more about if the symbols that I found might mean anything. If that's really all I wanted to know. Those three
Are
symbols.
you going to show her the symbols?
Yeah, I can't think of any other way I'd describe it.
And she sort of like brings out a gnarled, a bony finger, and she sort of like taps them, and she says, "Ah, the fairies have been writing to you, I see." Mr. Peabody, the outsiders are very respectful of you. Obviously, there's a significant class difference here, and
make sure that he knows that he's from the hall. And
and they seem to be very truthful in what they're saying to you. They actually got brought in to do jobs, but also mainly to because Sir William didn't want to trust anybody from the village to do his work. They actually were given these houses. They pay half the rent to the rent is reduced from their wages directly at source. The people who were living here were told to get out, basically. The first job that they had to do was to remove the standing stone in Hobb's field to make it so it could be arable land. And they did that, and then the stone was re-erected by someone, and they're not too sure what. And after that, they were awaiting for further information. And apparently Mr. Mckenzie often says to them to do some dry stone walling, or to do some ploughing of nearby land or something like that. They're definitely in employment to the Bargrove Hall.
Right. But at the moment, after the death of Sir William, they're
almost at a loss.
They were at a loss. Right.
Yeah.
That's
just while you're down here, it's probably, before you go back, it's probably just worth just checking out the stone.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a grey monolith. It's about 10 foot high, as I said. It's crudely shaped, but it has no carvings or anything evident on its surface. Can you both do spot hidden rolls for me, please?
As they're walking up, and Gleek is probably telling him what he had heard in the tavern.
Yeah.
Peabody's going to be very interesting to see whether or not there's a split down the middle where it could open.
Yeah. Okay then. So there was one other thing that you didn't mention, just to make sure nobody mentioned the standing stone in the village. So that was never shared with the villagers to get their feelings. But one thing you do notice about the standing stone, just as you suspected, you start looking for a door to sort of like link into Mary's story, but no, it's definitely absolutely solid. But one thing you do notice is that round the other two things you notice. First thing, this is for your spot hidden roll. Number one, it doesn't look like it's been newly erected.
Okay.
Like it's always been there?
Correct. And the other thing that you notice is round the base of the stone, the grass
is scorched.
Is all blackened and burnt. And that's it.
But is there any sort of like soot marks on the actual stone obelisk itself?
No, it just looks like sort of like very grey. There's no rope marks, there's no carvings, there's no burn marks or anything. Just round the base, especially at the so-called front of it. Any other questions you would like to ask while you're down at Hobbs Field?
Yes. Would I be able to use my science astronomy skill here to suggest... Well, that's during the day. I guess that wouldn't help. I'm curious how visible the night sky is here.
Very. On a cloudless night, you will be able to see everywhere. There's only the odd tree, if you remember, on Dartmoor. So if it's a cloudless night, you would be able to see the moon, the stars, everything. And there's no bright lights like in the cities today to sort of like stop you seeing the night sky. So it would be quite easy to sort of like look out and see things.
Peabody just wants to have a look at the ground, because this is supposed to be a field that it's on. Does it look good?
Yeah.
Good soil, or
yes.
is it stony?
No, it does look like it's been just like in the picture that I've just brought up for you. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's tried to be ploughed, but obviously this stone's in the middle, and it looks like it was probably removed, ploughed, and then it's come back. Not ploughed, i.e. taken the grass away, but try to sort of like roughly plough it to discourage the grass growing. The soil looks quite good. I mean, you're not an expert on it, Mr. Peabody, but it looks like you could grow something on it.
It's not gravel.
No.
She's not gravel. Yeah.
Okay, so it is getting to night. So it's probably best if you... It's not night, but it's getting to evening. So it's probably best if you head back to the hall, ready for nightfall. And you sort of like head back and you sort of like get together and...
Peabody's just going to sort of like talk to him about what he was having a word with about the priest was. And he's going to say that he tried to find out who was the sort of like the oldest member of the village to see whether or not they might have been related, sort of like the latest descendants of maybe one of the ones that had originally set the curse.
Right. Okay then.
Ages ago. That was his sort of like questioning of the priest to see who was the oldest member of who had been there the longest, etc.
Huh. I thought you were just trying to figure out who would be the most knowledgeable. That's what I was trying to figure out.
No, I was trying to work out who might have actually been a direct descendant of the people who had actually originally cast the curse, maybe.
That would be very interesting. But I don't know how much a descendant would know about their...
Well, beliefs and superstitions and magic is normally passed on from generation to generation.
That's valid. Yeah.
So you actually arrive back at Bargrove Hall as, it's getting dark outside. We're still in February, so the night comes in early, and especially out here on the moors, and it looks like there's probably going to be snow again throughout the night, as quite grey clouds, heavy laden clouds are starting to block out the sky. And you arrive, Mckenzie takes you back and you get off the carriage, and the door is opened as you arrive by Howard. And he sort of like takes from you your coats and your hats and your canes, etc., and is about to put it into the cloakroom when the Miss Beddoes, who you remember is the housekeeper of Bargrove Hall, sort of like comes out and says, Mr. Howard, you need to come into the kitchen straight away. I just do not know what to do. And Howard says, please, Mrs. Beddoes, please, your voice. Oh, yes, sorry, but please come immediately. And she sort of like busts off. She's quite a rotund lady, and you can only see where her bust stops and her stomach starts by the apron that's tied round her middle, defining what could possibly be a hidden waist. And she sort of like goes bustling off in sort of like clip-cloppy shoes, and Howard sort of like hangs up your coat and bags and sort of like follows, and purely out of curiosity you sort of like follow I'll see Howard come through this door if you're on that map.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as you go through into the scullery, you notice that the back door's open, and there's a rather dark-skinned, almost like tanned boy there, about 14 years old. He has sort of like wild eyes and almost like an unkempt hair, and he seems to be there, and he's sort of like, he's saying to Mrs. Beddoes, he sort of saying, come on, just give us some bread, come on please, some bread. And Howard sort of like comes in and says, who are you, who are you boy? And the lad turns round to him and says, I only want some food, mister, some food, and maybe some ale or something like that, please. And Howard's almost like gets a little bit more angry, and he says, boy, who are you? And Reuben, as his name is, turns round to you all, and he says, "I'm just here. We've just arrived with my family." And he says, I'm not a thief." He says, "I'm a gypsy."
The first thing that...
And we will leave it there.
Peabody's eyes just go down to his feet to see whether or not he has boots on.
Oh, I can tell you that. He does have boots on. Just roll a spot hidden for me.
Extreme.
Yeah.
I'm going to use 4 points of luck to put it to 0.
You do notice that he's not barefooted. He does have some boots on, but the boots are very battered. And you notice that as he walks, almost like the sole flips away from the boot. Yeah, so it would appear that a gypsy boy has arrived at Bargrove Hall.
Dirty gypsies.
Just maybe something is repeating itself. Yeah, well done. We'll leave it there. It's really interesting hearing your thoughts as you go through.
Do you want to know? I found it so hard to play Peabody because he's not a believer, so it's very hard to get across what I'm thinking.
Do you know? I think what was really interesting. Mr. Pickles and Longshank CPG had this conversation last time. Is that I think as investigators,
you have to believe.
Yeah, because it's almost like if you didn't believe it, that something was going amiss, then that you wouldn't even bother taking the job, unless the job was more to disprove the happenings, And I sort of like
maybe it's more that he always looks for the more
rational
explanation until there's no more rational explanation. It's like when he thought it was going to be the daughter.
Yeah,
but then everything pointed to that it couldn't be the daughter.
Yeah, exactly. And what was it? Was it Sherlock Holmes? Who?
No, that was me who did it.
No, was it Sherlock Holmes that said?
Damn you, Watson.
Yeah.
Oh, when there's something about when something about when nothing else can, when everything else has been.
Yeah, I'm sure it was Sherlock Holmes that said, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And then he said, it's simply elementary.
My dear Peabody.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, born 22nd of May 1859. So it's interesting, he's already writing about Sherlock Holmes. So that would be somebody that you are aware of. And I think that, and I think Dr. King had it last sessions. He sort of like, we were talking to Longshanks how he probably started off not believing, but now is believing. But I also think there's several levels of belief. You can believe in ghosts and spirits because they're really popular in Victorian times, but believing in the Cthulhu mythos, the old gods, is another jump altogether. You know, and I think even the people who believe in ghosts probably don't actually want to experience or start believing about the Cthulhu mythos. Yeah. So I think the other thing is, and I think you did it round the right way at the Bargrove village. You have to be really careful who you talk to because of the
class.
The class, yeah. And it's interesting because I remember having a discussion that you wouldn't want to be a lower class because of the society, but in certain situations it's interesting that at the beginning I wrote if there is a lower class person, they will have supper with the servants. Well, the upper class would have it with Lady Allingham, and I think that's really interesting then, because you're getting two sides of the story.
Yeah,
you know, right from the beginning. You know, so well done. We will pick it up next week. Hopefully, Dr. King will have recovered from his food poisoning. He's had a good day in bed. So hopefully it'll be down for tea.
That parlour pot would have been used a lot.
Yes, he'll probably be down. But interesting things. You've now got several new leads. You know a lot more about Sir William. You also have discovered this weird standing stone that might, Mr. Bleeker, relate to your dreams. There's also their fairies coming into the picture. And lo and behold, just at the end of the session, as if to replay the curse once more, a gypsy arrives begging at the back door of Bargrove Hall. So I would just like to say to each and every one of you, please remember to come back next Thursday to see what the investigators get up to in the next episode of the Burnt Man Mystery. Also, please remember that on Saturday we'll be playing some Starfinder, so come along 7 o'clock BST time on this channel, when I will be joined once again by Mr. Pickles and Chuggerwugger, but also with Medivac UK. He will be here as well, and we'll be playing, zapping ourselves off into space with some
to infinity
Starfinder.
and beyond.
Yes, and I would just like to say to you all before you go home, or before you head off to bed, can I please remind you that the ghost stories and nasty things and horrific things that you hear in a Call of Cthulhu adventure, it is all make-believe, and nobody really believes in ghosts. So until next time, please sleep well, and we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.